Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for attending this meeting of the Council. Please note that the meeting is being live streamed on the Council's YouTube channel, and I welcome members of the press and the public who may be viewing this meeting remotely. As we move to the formal business of the meeting...
Point of personal clarification, Madam Mayor, is that okay?
Yes, certainly. Thank you, Councillor.
I'd like to inform the Chamber that as of today I have cancelled my membership with the Conservative Party. Sorry, I'm quite nervous. If you can just bear with me. I can no longer attach my name to this party, especially after everything that's happened nationally and the carnage the Conservative Party have caused nationally. I just can't be a part of that anymore. And I'm sorry I've had to bring this here today, but I had no other place to go. I would also like to put on record how disgusting I feel it was how Councillor Helen Greener was treated by the party locally, and I completely disagree with that. So I have taken the decision to step down from the Conservative Party, and I've now become a member of the Labour Party. I would like everybody to know in Riot, I will carry on doing the great work that I'm doing, and I will carry on delivering for the people of Riot. With this being said, Madam Mayor, I would like your permission to cross the floor and go be with my new colleagues.
Permission granted. Thank you, Councillor.
Sorry, personal. I was going to do...
The Chief decided after the freedom of the... Right, thank you very much, everyone. We'll now carry on with the business of the meeting. I would like to state at this point it is my intention to move briskly through the business tonight so that all topics can be covered. We have a number of interested parties in the public seating tonight, and I would like dearly to get to that particular topic. We have a lot of business to be dealt with, and as we have a number of councillors for whom this will be their last meeting, I want to ensure that all those who wish to speak are able to do so. So I will be strict on the timing for speakers each time. Please don't ask for extensions. I will stop you at your 5 minutes. And if we feel that people are being repetitive, people have already indicated they're going to speak. If it's becoming repetitive, we will restrict the speakers also. That's not set in stone, but I'm just giving you fair warning. Thank you. Can we take the notice convening the meeting as read? Agreed. Thank you. Do we have any apologies for absence?
Yes, Madam Mayor, we have apologies from Councillors Eyre, Loughlin, A. Wood and Alderman Forbes.
Are there any further apologies? Thank you, Councillor Peacock.
Councillor Dominic McDonough, please.
Councillor Edgeworth.
Thanks. Apologies from Kieran Morrissey, Niall Hudson, and I believe George Smith, Paul Gibson and Martin Haswell are all in the queue for St Mary's car park, so we'll be late. And can I ask if we're the majority opposition yet?
The next item is the minutes of the last ordinary and extraordinary meetings of the Council held on the 22nd of February 2023 and the extraordinary meeting of the Council held on the 8th of March 2023. Apologies for absence from Councillor Bond are required to be added to the minutes of the extraordinary meeting on the 8th of March. Can we agree the minutes? Thank you. Do any members have any interests to declare tonight? Councillor Williams.
Sorry, Madam Chair, I'd like to declare on the WASPI motion, notice motion 2 as a person who's in that category.
Thank you very much. Councillor Watson.
Yes, the WASPI notice motion, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor.
The WASPI motion, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. I'd like to thank those members who have given notice of their wish to speak tonight. Where notice has been given, the member will be invited to speak at the appropriate time. If any member who hasn't given prior notice wishes to speak at any point during the meeting, they should please raise their hand to indicate and speak when invited to do so. It would also be of assistance if you could state your name. As the municipal elections in May approach, there are a number of our colleagues who have indicated that they will be retiring at the end of their current term of office. As this will be their last council meeting, I would therefore like to pay tribute to these members. If anyone would like to make a comment, and if any of the retiring councillors wish to respond and address the council, I will offer an opportunity at the end of these announcements. So I'll start with our longest serving member, Councillor Peter Wood. Peter was first elected to the council in 1967, serving in the former Colliery ward, then from 71 to 82 as full ward member. In 83 to 84, Peter was elected to represent St Michael's ward, and he then came back to serve as a St Michael's ward councillor in May 1999 up till now. Councillor Wood is widely respected by all council colleagues for his contribution to citywide issues. His debates in the council chamber, his dedicated hard work while serving on the council for over 5 decades is well recognised by everyone. Peter has served as both the leader and deputy leader of the Conservative group on a number of occasions. He currently serves on the Audit and Governance, Standards and Human Resources Committee, as well as being a long-standing and valued member of the Port Board. Previous key appointments included being on the Planning and Highways Committee, various scrutiny committees, and the Tyne and Wear Integrated Transport Authority. Peter is also a long-standing governor for St Aidan's School. Councillor Peter Gibson was first elected to the council. Sorry, my apologies. I moved on rather quickly then, didn't intend to do so. Thank you, Councillor Wood. We'll have the opportunity for formal thank yous as we move along. Thank you. Councillor Peter Gibson was first elected to the council in 1986, representing Silksworth Ward. During his time on the council, Peter has served on many committees and outside bodies, again, far too many to list. He currently chairs the Standards Committee and serves on the Audit and Governance and Licensing Regulatory Committees, as well as the Tyne and Wear Trading Standards Joint Committees. His key former appointments include being on the Tyne and Wear Fire and Rescue Authority, the Empire Theatre Trust, and Newcastle International Airport Limited, as well as serving in the community on the West Police and Community Forum, youth projects, and as a school governor. Peter has also had the privilege of serving as the mayor of the city from 2002 to 2003, which I know he did with great gusto. Thank you, Peter. Councillor Louise Farthing has served as a ward councillor for Houghton Ward between 1998 and 2004, and then for Washington South from 2012. Originally appointed as a Deputy Cabinet Member for Leisure in 2000, Louise currently serves as the Cabinet Portfolio Holder for Children, Learning and Skills. Louise has served on many committees and outside bodies, and her key appointments as Portfolio Holder include the Standing Advisory Council on Religious Education and the Corporate Parenting Board, as well as both the Adult and Children's Safeguarding Boards. Outside bodies include the Education Partnership North East, Sunderland College, Board of Corporation, the North East Child Poverty Commission and the former Derwent Hills Centre Management Board, in addition to being a governor of a number of schools and nurseries during her time on the council. And I just want to add a personal note to this, very briefly. You all know how dogged Louise can be in getting things done. And I've got to say, from my appointment as Deputy Mayor, she has been at my shoulder every step of the way. Everything I have done, everything I have achieved, she has been there encouraging and supporting me. And for that, I thank you, Louise. Councillor Len Loughlin was appointed in 2011 to serve on the Washington Central Ward. He has served on the Planning and Highways Committee, the former Environment and Attractive City Scrutiny Committee, and the Tyne and Wear Fire and Rescue Authority. He has also been a governor of Biddick School. Thank you. Councillor Helen Greener was appointed to the council in May 2019 to serve on the Barnes Ward. She has also been a member of the Planning and Highways Committee, as well as serving on a number of scrutiny committees and on the Education Appointment of Governors panel and Green Terrace Primary School Trust. She is also a governor for Plains Farm Academy. Thank you. Councillor James Doyle was elected to the council in May 2019 for the Fulwell Ward and is the current deputy leader of the Conservative group. He has served on the Standards, Scrutiny Coordinating and Planning and Highways Committees. Other key roles included being a member of the Tyne and Wear Fire and Rescue Authority, the Standing Advisory Council on Religious Education, on a number of North East Combined Authority committees and as school governor. And I know from personal experience the big input he had into the North Area Committee and the sterling work he has done for all parties on that committee. Thank you. Councillor Stephen Buick was appointed to the council in May 2019 to serve the Ryab Ward. During his time on the council, he has served on Planning and Highways Committee and the Licensing and Regulatory Committee. And I saw him at work at Christmas, running crazy around Ryab, trying to get the lights on time. He's been a hard worker in his ward. Thank you, Councillor. Can I thank all those retiring from the council for their great contribution? If any member wishes to speak, will they please indicate? I already have names of people who have said they wish to speak, and they are Councillors D. Wilson, Mullen, Dixon, Hartnack, Mann, Reid, Johnston, Wood and Doyle. Sorry. And Councillor Price. Thank you. And the leader. Thank you. We'll now take other names. Thank you very much.
Councillor Williams, Councillor Donaghy, Councillor Buick.
Thank you.
Councillor Truman, Councillor Butler, Councillor Heron,
Ty and
Councillor Ty,
J.
Councillor Smith.
Councillor Heron.
We've got her.
Got Councillor Heron.
Is that everyone? Councillor Petermore.
And Councillor Wood.
Yes. Yes.
And Councillor
of course,
Gibson.
Councillor. Thank you. Councillor Farthing.
Councillor Farthing.
Okay. Thank you very much. We'll begin with Councillor Wilson, D. Wilson. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I thought I couldn't. Now I'll have to write a speech while I'm talking. I'd like to thank all the councillors who leave, and they've been great colleagues, been excellent working with us. You've done a really good job. That's on every party. Peter, who I first met when we come in, has been outstanding, really good, a stalwart of the Labour Party, and excellent. Councillor Doyle, in our area committee, just a quick little story about James. We call him the Saurus because he's increased our vocabulary in the North Area Committee, knowing we've learnt words. We used to be happy just grunting at each other, me and Stevie. And then one day, James used the word assuage. So I looked at Stevie, Stevie looked at me, I said to Stevie, huh? And Stevie went, huh? So I thought I'd get James back. So I sent him an email the next morning, and I used the word assuage. Obviously, I can't spell it. That's the job of the computer, predictive text and all that. So James replied to my email, and this is me James' voice. Dear Denny, thank you for your email. I do believe the word you were trying to use was assuage, as I have spelled it here. Not as you spelled it, a sausage. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Councillor Mullen, thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. On behalf of my group, can I offer thanks and best wishes to everyone who is retiring, but specifically I want to talk about James, my retiring deputy. And such as his legacy, this might go on a little bit, but I will just remind colleagues that I'm standing roughly where Michael Essel stood last year when he spoke for 20 minutes. I promise not to go on for quite that long. I've been working on what to say about Councillor Doyle's departure for some months now, but in reality I've had years to prepare this, because having been elected in May of 2019, James informed me of his intention to stand down by the end of summer 2019, having had such a large volume of emails about planning, developments and complaints from residents that he had decided working with the public in a political capacity just wasn't for him, and he now seeks instead to become a council officer, more on which later. That prompted him telling me that if I wanted his assistance in becoming the leader of the group, I better get a move on, and the rest, as they say, is history. I first met James in 2017, and it was at the behest of the BBC. We were both summoned to do the same BBC Radio 5 live interview in the Milligan's Bakery of Sunderland Railway Station, and we were both interviewed then by Fiona Trott. We've since talked about that chance encounter and what impressions we had of one another. He recalls being impressed that somebody in local politics was doing a PhD on Margaret Thatcher, and I in turn remember thinking that he looked like a child's drawing of a man, a kind of 7-foot Quentin Blake illustration, walking with his Mac as the rain tumbled down upon him. In the time that I've known James, his politics has gone from one extreme to another, and I now consider him to be left-wing. And as I reflect more and more on his recent political developments, I come to realise that Fiona wasn't the only trot in Milligan's that morning. Some of you will get that one later on. Throughout his time on the council, James has shown a great interest in and understanding of one area in particular. Some of you may have noticed, but James here likes planning, don't you, James? And whilst it might be very impressive and informed observers are keen on listening to what he has to say, and I know that he has fans within the council's planning department, he uses words and talks about topics that I have no shame in saying I couldn't care less about. I have not been able to understand most of what he has said for the last 4 years. The words, the concept, the phrases are beyond my understanding. I've tried to take an interest in the technical planning stuff he talks about, but simply cannot get my head around it. But perhaps I should have taken an interest, because as the final motion on today's agenda shows, having an understanding of things like the disposal of land can prove very helpful when the council can't account for some of its eyebrow-raising decision-making, and James has really secured as his legacy uncovering some of that. As well as an interest in planning, he also has a firm commitment to the environment and to sustainability. And many of you will remember that he used to drive around in quite a ridiculous-looking little electric smart car. And it's easy, and I would say encouraged, to assume that electric smart cars don't lead to exciting events. But the reality, Madam Mayor, is that there are hazards of driving such a thing. A few years ago, after James and I had been to the cinema, we pulled in his little electric smart car into the car park of the Fastned so he could pull in, and this was about 10, 11 o'clock at night. He went in to charge up, and a man emerged from behind the skip that was in the car park and stood in front of his headlights and then went back behind the skip. And James drove past, and we're looking through his rear view mirror at this man just coming out from behind the skip, then back in. And we're thinking, what's going on here? So James gets out to plug the car in. And as you know, James has got an unusual way of phrasing certain things. And he gets back in the car very quickly and he says, Anthony, he's seeing to himself. And I think, well, we can't be having a public masturbator. So I rang the police and said to him, I'm sorry to bother you, I'm in the Fastned charging point and there's a man behind a skip masturbating. And the police said, oh, right, okay, can you tell us his movements? And I said, well, he's going back and forth from behind the skip. And so I'm looking in the wing mirror at this man as he comes out from behind the skip. And eventually the police arrive, and I turn around, come off the phone, turn around to James, and he's looking shocked. He says, why did you say he was doing that? I said, what? I said, he said he was saying to himself. I said, no, Anthony, he was singing to himself. It did transpire, though, that the man in question was a shoplifter and his skip was where he'd kept all of his loot. So accidentally, we did help rid the city of one criminal. James arrived to the Conservative Party perhaps uniquely with a private education. You may have noticed. But there is, however, one thing that it turns out posh schools don't seem to teach, and they certainly didn't teach it at James's school, and that's the importance of good posture. In the early days, I had the job of taking James's photos for his leaflets. It was originally a job that Bob Francis had, and then one day we found him wearing a great big A5 name tag that made it look like he'd got out of some kind of asylum on day release. So I volunteered instead to take his pictures, but he would have this habit of standing as he... In fact, if you stand up a second, James, just so I can demonstrate. He had this habit of standing with his arms by his side, but then he would lean over like some kind of photosynthesizing sunflower, kind of over to one side or over to the other. And so we had to correct his posture to get him to be able to stand up straight. It was most remarkable, but I think if I've taught him anything, it's how...
Sorry, Councillor Mullin, it's 6 minutes now. Will you wind up, please?
I've only got 2. Thank you. So James and I were both elected during what Councillor Hodson described at the budget meeting as the Robert Oliver era Conservatives, a phrase which I think has only very recently entered the political historiography and which existed until that point as Hapag Slegomenon. And since that time, James, as my deputy, has brought his keenness for diplomacy, moderation and calm, all things which my preferences contrast, to the leadership of the group. He's been exceptionally loyal over his years as deputy, and as well as being a loyal deputy, he's also been a close friend. And I finish with this, Madam Mayor, on the subject of friendship. James and I often travel together, and our favourite place to travel is to Edinburgh. And there are many reasons why a person might want to travel to Edinburgh: the architecture, the drinking culture, and the weather. But for James, I think the reason he likes to go to Edinburgh is Dick's. James loves Dick's. Usually, he has to access... You know what I'm talking about, nobody else will. Usually, he has to access Dick's online, but when we're in Edinburgh, he insists that we visit their store so that he can buy his colourful knitwear. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Dixon, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's difficult to know how to follow that one, really. Yeah, I'd like to wish all the best to the retiring councillors from That's from the Labour Party, and also to my colleague, Councillor Doyle, who was one of the best members of the Planning Committee that I can remember going back quite a few years. But I'd like to say some words tonight regarding the pending retirement of my colleague, Councillor Peter Wood. It's remarkable that his first year as a councillor was in 1967, as mentioned by Madam Mayor, when Harold Wilson was Prime Minister, Edward Heath was the leader of the main opposition, and the Liberals were about to appoint Jeremy Thorpe as their leader. Indeed, 3 years later, Peter stood as a Conservative candidate in Gateshead in the 1970 general election, which was the first one when the voting age was reduced to 18. It's a career spanning decades, yet rarely do I hear Peter talk to younger colleagues by referring to things being better in my day. Instead, he has much preferred to live in the present rather than the past, and to face each new council year as a challenge and an opportunity. Indeed, in his role as an opposition councillor for all but a brief time, I believe that Peter has taken the view, and it's one to which I subscribe, namely, how can I do something today to make a difference to try and help my ward and to try and help my city, without, of course, losing sight of the need to ask searching questions at the appropriate time. Trust, of course, is a vital commodity in any walk of life, and if you have it in politics, whether local or national, it is some compliment. A very good example of this came in the days when Paul Watson was the leader of the council and Peter the leader of a very small number of Conservative councillors. Very regularly, Peter and myself, as his deputy, were invited to informal meetings with Councillor Watson and his senior colleagues, Councillor Harry Truman and Councillor Mel Spedding, when discussions about current issues in the city took place. Now, the Labour leadership did not have to do this, but they knew that any exchanges would be treated in the strictest of confidence by a responsible opposition under Peter's leadership. And expanding this point, I'd be very surprised if there were many, if any, councillors of whatever political persuasion over the years who did not respect Peter in his various roles on the many committees and boards of which he's been a constructive and valued member. And the same would apply, I think, to council officers of all age groups to whom he's been unfailingly polite and had a very good relationship with. Locally, I've known Peter during his time in St Michael's from the mid to late 1990s onwards, and I can assure everyone here that Peter is held in the highest esteem by fellow Conservative members and, of course, importantly, by residents in the ward he's so diligently represented and, of course, lived amongst for so many years. None of us are going to please everybody in our work as a councillor, but Peter, through his dedicated efforts, support of local residents groups and capacity for hard work, has gone a long way towards achieving that. Now, transport has always been Peter's main interest, so he was a great companion for me, either for a day out or a longer holiday abroad. Whether it was arranging the times on the metro, the train and the bus, there and back from Sunderland to see Falkirk play Wraith Rovers, or catching the Berlin to Leipzig morning train after a U-Bahn ride to the main station, Peter had the times of them all and were probably memorised. You could just relax and let him get on with it. And visiting the enormous, impressive Leipzig Central Station a few years ago with its vast numbers of platform, and which was ranked as the best station in Europe in 2021, must have been for Peter like a visit to the Holy Grail. As you would expect, transport played a central part for one of his very ambitious holidays as he boarded the Trans-Siberian train heading on his travels to Mongolia. There will surely not be that many Sunderland councillors since 1967 who have spent some time in Ulaanbaatar. I will, of course, miss Peter as a ward colleague, and we've worked very closely together, having broadly similar outlook on most political matters, both local and national. We've been agent to the other when seeking election and re-election, and he's been a great support to myself and past Conservative colleagues in St Michael's up to the present day, and indeed in other wards, always doing his best to help others. But while sad to see Peter leave the council, it's very pleasing to note that he's doing so at a time of his own choosing. Unlike past colleagues who have said or done things that meant they had to go, or others who quickly realised that the role of a councillor is not for them and can't wait to leave, Peter, while no doubt probably still enjoying aspects of the work, has realised it is the right time to call it a day. So to conclude, Madam Mayor, I do hope I speak for all councillors here, and many since retired, when I express much admiration for Peter's long and outstanding period of public service in Sunderland. And I'm sure too all colleagues will wish him well for whatever the future brings. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hartner, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Congratulations and best wishes to all retiring members whose last formal meeting it is today. But what can one say about Councillor James Doyle? Elected as a very youthful, young councillor in May 2019, winning the seat in Fulwell from Labour's Margaret Beck, who was a well-known and highly respected local councillor and personality, much remembered, often talked about and still loved in the Fulwell area, on what will be the 3rd anniversary of her untimely death due to COVID next Monday, the 27th of March. May Margaret rest in peace. So James took on the role and set his stance as being the perfect gentleman, modelling himself on none other than Jacob Rees-Mogg. And when James chose to sign off his correspondence to his residence with a particularly old-fashioned but perfectly polite salutation, not yours sincerely or yours faithfully, but your obedient servant, Councillor James Doyle. And once he became familiar with those same residents through correspondence, he shortened that salutation to YOS for short. And one middle-aged resident once asked me at a surgery, observing that councillors were getting much younger these days, he asked me if YOS stood for Youth Opportunity Scheme. I advised him that perhaps it did. James has grown in maturity and stature over the past 4 years, and I have had the pleasure of working with him during that time as a ward colleague. He is tenacious, highly intelligent, and combines this with an overemphasis on tact and diplomacy, which even when hitting the opposition with a critical blow, he does so respectfully and in good humour. Without doubt, he has become a seasoned, highly skilled politician, and this will serve him well in his chosen career path as he progresses through life. James has also taken on the role of governor at 2 local primary schools, and one, Fulwell Junior School, he joined at a particularly difficult time when it was discovered that the school business manager had defrauded the school and its children of £120,000 over a 4-year period. His knowledge of planning law, as I think everyone in this chamber will agree and has already been mentioned, is second to none, and having recently passed his degree with first-class honours while undertaking a demanding full-time job and deputy leader of our party is an amazing achievement for someone so young. His contribution to supporting me, the Save Seaburn campaign, and the fight against Northumbria Water's sewage discharges in the North Sea has been outstanding, and he will be missed, I'm sure, by members and the public across the council and beyond. Thank you, James, for your contribution, and thank you, Madam Mayor, for allowing me to indulge in formally thanking one of our retiring members. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Mann, please.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I'd just like to say congratulations and best wishes to everyone who's retiring and for their service. To my colleague, James Doyle, who we came through at the same time, I'd like to say it's been loads of fun, but James doesn't like confrontation. So anytime I go anywhere near him, he's off like that with his head down. He's lovely. He's so clever. He's amazing. Don't understand a word that he's talking about mostly, but there you go. He's a nice guy. I'd also like to say some words to a previous colleague, Stephen Buick. Steve, we've had a ball, haven't we? We really have. They say you must grow a thick skin when you get into politics. This is described by governance as having a higher tolerance level. If you dare to put your head above the parapet, it's going to get shot at, and we've certainly been shot at, haven't we? Going back to 2019, when we were elected together, it was the strangest experience. You couldn't attend the count yourself because you're on night shift as a firefighter, the career that you chose because you wanted to protect life. After 5 recounts, I recall texting you to say, Steve, you're a councillor, and you replying, oh, right, okay, what do we do next? Well, we were as green as grass and suddenly taking on a responsibility that we weren't prepared for, but we rose to the challenge over coffees, training, meetings in our party broom cupboard and in your camper van in Costa's car park where we allocated our committee seats. We stood up for the job because we, like the majority of our country at the time, wanted to leave the European Union. We wanted Brexit and we wanted a change in our local communities, a different voice, an opposition voice, a challenge and an improvement, that's all. Pretty local stuff, really, all about our communities. We were mums and dads and we wanted the best for our kids, education, youth provision and jobs, simple people with a different opinion. Well, for daring to do that, we were labelled as racists, fascists, xenophobes, and to be honest, I didn't even know what that meant until I came in here. But conspiracy theorists, anti-vaxxers, and my personal favourite, Fruit Loops. At our first councillor meeting, a councillor said, they look like they've been dipped in a bucket of purple paint, not knowing I was right behind them. And yes, you know who you are, Councillor Butler. And we're still friends, aren't we? Out of respect, we went along to Councillor David Snowden's mayoral inauguration to bring him a joint donation for the charities that we all cared about, Minds and Veterans in Crisis. Even at that, we were photographed and ridiculed for having a glass of wine and a canapé. I was followed up the members' corridor having the words "eating from the trough" shouted at me by a Lib Dem. It was a sausage on a stick, for Pete's sake. You know, did you really care that much? But 4 years on, Steve, things are different now. We left the party that we didn't believe in anymore and we went our separate ways. We've formed friendships, we've worked into party, we've contributed at committees, task groups and scrutiny, and we've brought the voice of our residents to these chambers. Steve, as a member for Ryhope, since 2019 you've achieved so much in the ward where you live and you've raised your family. You're well respected by your residents and you're known for getting things done. You are honest, dedicated and committed. You are reliable, approachable and the best buddy anyone could ever have. You haven't had the easiest of terms. Being a frontline firefighter, you worked throughout the pandemic. You still kept on top of council meetings via Teams and you still looked after your residents. You've seen tragedy in the loss of your beloved mum, an event that could have broken you. But still you did not step down as you refused to turn away from the residents who elected you, and you know how proud she is of you. You have also seen joy in the birth of your adorable grandson, who I'm sure takes up much of your time these days. And you have been promoted by Tyne and Wear Fire and Rescue Service, which is well deserved. Steve, you give your all to everything you do. As your friend, I know that you are standing down today, not because you don't want to represent your area any longer. I know that you'll do that anyway. You are standing down because if you can't commit yourself 100% to a job, you would rather not take it on. It's been an absolute pleasure working alongside you, and I wish you luck in everything you do in the future. I hope you have enjoyed your term and that you are proud of your many achievements. This council has been better for your input, and I hope you'll continue to watch us closely. Don't forget the All Out in 26. There may be an opening. There may be one for me as well. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Reid.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to pay tribute to the man that was instrumental in getting me involved in politics and without whom I wouldn't have become a councillor. I remember at university waiting weeks for a lecturer to respond to emails. So when I emailed my local councillor to ask if I could do some work experience with him, and I received an email back within the same hour, I was genuinely shocked. Invited along to a meeting of the Conservative Association where I was introduced to everyone else, little did I know Peter had sealed my fate from that day onwards and that I would set to have all of my free time consumed by the party. Now, this is a story I quite like to tell. When I was campaigning for my seat in 2021, I ran into a resident and I was talking to him about how we'd voted nationally, and it said, well, he was traditionally Labour, but he was switching to the Conservatives in 2019 and he didn't know where he was standing. So I said, oh, well, I'm the local candidate for the Conservatives. How are you voting locally? And he said, oh, I always vote Conservative locally. I said, well, that's quite a strange distinction. Why do you do that? He said, well, many moons ago, there was a local councillor who helped me get a tree cut down that was uprooting my house and drive with its root. Councillor Peter Wood, I think he's still around. I said, yes, Peter's still around. When do you imagine this would be? He said, oh, it must have been June 1999. Bearing in mind for council, that's 6 months before I was even born. But this story is characteristic of Peter. Respected and feared in equal measure across the ward, he is the returning officer of basically every residents' association, including the Friends of the Park, and nearly every resident has his council business card held on their fridge by a magnet. He has earned a level of respect and name recognition that I think many of us can only dream of. An icon, if you like, of St Michael's Ward, which is why I will now be campaigning for a street to be renamed after him, a blue plaque on his house, and a statue of Peter Wood in the same of Christ the Redeemer on top of Tunstall Hill. This is because Peter has shown dedication and consistency and effectiveness as a councillor for well over 20 years. He will continue to be involved in the party, but perhaps having a little more time to go on holiday with his wife. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor S. Johnson, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I get the overall sense today that this chamber is losing a lot of very talented people on both sides. I'll start briefly by commending the job Councillor Farthingston as the portfolio holder for Children's Services. Sitting on that scrutiny committee, I know the progress we've made under her watch, and hopefully her successor can do just as well. Moving on to my side, because I can't be nice to you lot for too long, I'll start with Peter Wood. The first thing that stands out for Peter is his longevity of service. He was first elected in 1967, which was before my parents were even born, which shows how long ago that was. Indeed, as somebody who wrote his undergraduate dissertation on Edward Heath's government, to see Peter's name in the election results up in Gateshead was a shock in itself. Peter is somebody who has a specialist knowledge in transport, and that is a talent we're going to have to find somebody to fill. He founded the Conservative Transport Group, which was one of our best adjacent think tanks, and he's been on the Port Board, which he has brought a unique expertise and dedication to, and it'll let us maximise the opportunities we have with that. Moving on to James, he's one of my closest friends on this side of the chamber, and generally in life, and I remember the first time we met. James was the first Conservative I ever met in Sunderland, and somehow, after seeing him come bounding down the steps of the Civic Centre to greet me, I didn't run away. James has been a great ward councillor in Fulwell, somebody who has changed how on the north side we communicate with our residents, and he's somebody I've learnt a lot from. And that's the theme with James and me. I've learnt a lot from him. He was, as a Conservative, first deputy chairman political, and then eventually the chairman, and I had the honour of being his deputy then, and I learnt a lot from him then. James has also taught me a lot about diplomacy, and I remember when I'd just been a councillor, a couple of months, we had a meeting for the illuminations at St Andrew's Church, and I decided I'd come out all guns blazing, and James got me in the car afterwards and said, no, Sam, that's not how we behave, and I got a stern telling off. And from then I've learned you can work constructively. James has also taught myself and Councillor Mullen a lot about badminton. He has been our badminton coach now for a couple of years. And I hate to say, even after a couple of years, even after the game is finished, the step count on Anthony's iPhones is a lot higher than James's. So the workout is only for two of us. Now, finally, I think we should talk about James as the planning and development guru. And I don't know how we're going to replace him, and I think that is his legacy. As Anthony said, this motion is James going out with a bang. And what a 4 years. Thank you, James, and I'll keep it brief.
Thank you. Councillor Wood.
Madam Mayor, members of the Council, thank you very much for the kind remarks this afternoon. I'm not sure that I entirely recognise the person you've been referring to, but never mind. It does feel a little strange coming to realise that this is my last meeting as an elected member. It's actually my 40th year as a councillor. I know 1967 to 2023 sounds a bit longer, but it is a period of broken service, certainly. In the 80s, for example, as I think it really effectively you mentioned, Madam Mayor. It's my 40th year, and I've come to realise that you can't go on forever, whatever you're doing, you can't go on forever. And there comes a time to step down in favour of somebody younger with more energy and more enthusiasm. And I think it's the right decision, and certainly I've had no regrets in that sense. Though I will miss, obviously, colleagues with whom I've worked very closely over the years. There's plenty of variety, isn't there, in a councillor's life? No 2 years are ever the same. I've enjoyed my time as a councillor, especially, if I may say so, in more recent years. Working with Michael Dixon. There's no councillor who works harder than Michael Dixon anywhere, I can tell you that. That is certainly the case. I've enjoyed working with Robert Oliver and indeed young Lyle as well in the most recent past. I've seen plenty of changes, of course, over my period as a member of the council. I've attended meetings of the council in 3 different venues. We started off at the old town hall, which then was the headquarters of the old county borough council, which was Conservative controlled when I joined it. Moved on to the Civic Centre, and now here at City Hall. And in the earlier days of council meetings, were dealing much more with committee reports, Madam Mayor, than they were with motions, which seems to be the case today. And I asked the question, was scrutiny more effective in those days? Met many different councillors over the years, obviously. And the vast majority have always impressed me with their high commitment to the spirit of public service and wanting to do the very best for the residents they represent. And I'm sure that will continue after May this year. And I think the council too has been well served by its officers, those at the top and indeed those at the bottom of the pay scales. And can I particularly pay tribute to 2 members of the council who in recent years have particularly helped me in terms of responding to the queries and complaints of residents in St Michael's Ward. Nicole Truman, who worked so steadfastly within the East area until her recent move, and Sam Foley, still with us in members' services. I'd like to say thank you very much indeed to them, but of course not just to them, to the other officers in the council as well. If I sought to name them all, Madam Mayor, I'd soon be in trouble with you, I think, in terms of timing. Can I also say it's good to see the number of young councillors in the council now. I remember the leader saying some months ago, there were looking probably at the opposition benches really, there were too many young members of the council, he thought. I don't agree. It demonstrates that local government in Sunderland is not the preserve of the old and the retired, as it is in too many places in the country. Politics and democracy are alive and well in Sunderland, and long may that continue, Madam Mayor. So can I say thank you again to everybody, best wishes to you all, to fellow retirees and those continuing beyond May. And I know you will continue to uphold the best traditions of public service. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Wood. Councillor Doyle.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor, and I find myself in the rather unusual position of not knowing what to say, because I've been slightly overwhelmed with all the very kind things that colleagues have said so far during this meeting, and I think, like Councillor Wood, I do not recognise the person that is described. I want to start by thanking my colleagues in the Conservative group, without whom it would not be possible to serve as Deputy Leader. They've been incredibly supportive, kind, accommodating. Thanks in particular go to, of course, Anthony, who's not only my leader, but my friend, my best friend, and we've had some rather interesting and memorable experiences over the last 4 years, and I rather hope that that will continue. I did not expect, I have to say, him to mention my fondness for Dick's. That caught me slightly by surprise, but it is a wonderful shop, and I would recommend it heartily, Madam Mayor, if you're ever in Edinburgh and in need of knitwear. I want to pay tribute also to Peter Wood, of course. Peter is someone to whom I've looked up over the last 4 years. He is someone in whom the bright, burning flame of centrism still resides. And I feel as though he and I, on the moderate wing of the Conservative Party, are the types of Conservative that I think we are seeing more of in Sunderland, and we need to see more of nationally as well. And I make no apology for my criticism of the National Party in that respect. I'm reminded, as I stand here at my last meeting of full council, of one of my very first meetings of full council. In fact, I think perhaps the first occasion on which I spoke, when in a rather fiery speech I described our beloved leader of the council as a fool, and was eventually told by Councillor David Snowden to sit down and shut up. I rather wonder what sort of thoughts were racing through David's mind at that point, and how he thought he was going to manage me over the course of the next year. But I think what happened there was that very quickly the grinding reality of serving as a local councillor blunted what might have been at one point sharp political instinct and turned me into a dreadful wet. So much so that colleagues seem to now describe me as someone who's diplomatic and moderate. And I'm very pleased that, in sincerity, that I've been able to work constructively with colleagues from all parties. I think we've done an enormous amount of work, certainly on the North area. I'm very grateful to you, Madam Mayor, for mentioning that in your opening remarks. To Councillor Wilson, Councillor Foster, the work that we've managed to do in respect of sewage discharges in particular, I'm very proud of, and I'll forever be grateful for your time and attention. I'm amused by the mention of the word assuage. I do recall that email exchange, Councillor Wilson. In fact, I also think I inserted into one of my emails on the subject the word monosyllabic, which seemed to take you by great surprise. But the fact that I've managed to perhaps raise the discourse, or certainly make it more articulate, is something that I will consider a legacy. So thank you for that. I must also thank Michael Butler, someone with whom I'm very close on the other side. And on the subject of the word assuage, very early on, I remember in our professional relationship, I remember Michael mentioned that some of his friends had printed the word assuage onto a T-shirt. Such was its notoriety. And I remember thinking to myself, after a few exchanges with Michael, that this is somebody with whom I can do business. This is a very sensible person, and that was reflected in his time as chair of the Planning and Highways Committee. He would always give lots of time for scrutiny, lots of time for debate, and it's exactly the sort of thing that we need on a committee like planning. And so thank you, Michael, for your service there. But I suppose, really, Madam Mayor, conscious of time, I just want to thank all colleagues, thank the people in Fulwell for putting their trust in me. I'll miss the council dearly. It's something I greatly enjoy, but I'm sure that, as Peter mentioned earlier, that spirit of public service will still continue, and that the city is in good hands. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Doyle. Leader.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. First of all, I'd like to just have a quick word about the four opposition councillors that are in their final meeting this evening. Councillor Woods has been a permanent fixture of my 17 years as a councillor. He has always been a strong opponent, a good listener, a very capable talker, and I have appreciated his commentary, his opposition, because he's always had a reason behind what he said and why he said it, and it was consistent. I will miss him on the board, and whatever you're doing, Peter, keep out of mischief. But genuinely, I will miss you and enjoy that retirement from council. Councillor Greener, I don't know as well. I do sympathise and agree with Councillor Ali's comments, but I don't know enough about the background of that. Sometimes politics is what it is, Councillor Greener. I wish you all the success in what you do post May the 4th. And as far as I'm led to believe, and from what I've heard, you've been a good ward councillor and you're highly regarded in your ward. So that's the best you can do as a ward councillor, let's be honest, having that said about you. Councillor Buick is one of the few councillors from across the street there who've actually come to me and basically said, "Oi, I need a hand." And he's berated me about quad bikes, boulders, and stopping that sort of antisocial behaviour blighting parts of Ryup. And we got that sorted, Stephen, and I genuinely appreciate the fact that he felt he could come to me and we helped and we got that sorted. I know that as an active firefighter, this is a difficult thing to carry off that load of family, council and work, and I wish you all the best going forward in that ongoing career. I'm sure, as Councillor Mann has said, we might see you again down the road. Finally, Councillor Doyle. I'm not going to get into the loving that you clearly have with your leader, which is absolutely fine. You've been a very strong voice on planning. Obviously, it's your job. You're very, very good at it. I will not use the word assuage because I've got nothing to assuage with you at the moment. We're in a good place. But what I will say is that as we go forward with you leaving us and you become that Jacob Rees-Mogg sunflower, stood on your own, I'm always certain that, to be honest, Anthony, he'll always lean to the right. That's the opposition councillors dealt with. Councillor Peter Gibson also has been a permanent fixture of my council career. And I've never, ever come across somebody so strong in his view, in his actions, in everything that he's done to promote the Labour Party, its values, and how we best serve our residents. He's been, in my opinion, an outstanding area chair for long, long time, and before that in other roles. I will miss the advice and guidance that Peter gives to the group and to me personally. And once again, all I can say, Peter, is I'm not quite sure what Betty's going to do with you. And have you really thought it through, right? Councillor Loughlin can't be here tonight because of work commitments, but like myself, Len is a proud Scot, and he came onto the council 12 years ago. He's been a very good area chair through in Washington, and he's always been committed to doing what we can do for our residents across the city. I wish he was here so we could talk a little bit about him, because I could tell some stories, but I'm not going to do that since he's not here. And I wish him, Sandra, and his family well as they move on to our other things. But I get to come to Councillor Farthing, my ward colleague for the last 3 terms, and I'm going to miss her terribly. She is just the best. She's your mum, your auntie, your big sister, your little sister, all of it at the same time. But she's a great friend. She absolutely delivers. And I don't mean in her role in children's services, in the community. She is highly regarded. She's involved in everything. She makes a mean scone. Hopefully I'll see them again, because she's not cooked them for a while because she's been on a health kick. Who knew? But the highlight of Louise's career for me has to be the fact that we got to an outstanding Ofsted, and that she's been a permanent fixture in children's scrutiny, enabling councillors to access her as and when they need to ask her questions, to be engaged with all of that. I don't think you can do any more than get the point of your role to that level and keep it there. And I was very pleased that colleagues across the chamber mentioned it as well, and I thank you for acknowledging the work Louise has done. It will not change for me. You'll be glad to hear this will get worse for me with Louise. Because now not only is she's going to be an ex-councillor, but she's an ex-cabinet member. She knows all the tricks. She'll know what I can and should be doing, and she'll just expect it, and I'll have nowhere to hide. So I'm looking forward to that, like a second hole in the head, because I'm sure, as chair of Rickleton Residents Association, she will continue to represent the residents of Washington South, not just Rickleton, but Oxclose, Ayton and Lambton. And I look forward to seeing her every week, pretty much, as she brings problems to me. So Louise, you will be a terrible miss. And I'm looking forward to the after-party drinks where we can have a drink together. And that's all I'll say, Madam Mayor. Thank you very much, and good luck to everybody who's leaving.
Thank you, Leader. Councillor Price, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm delighted to be able to be given this opportunity to speak on the occasion one of our leading and most knowledgeable councillors leaves us today, Councillor Louise Farthing. After all, as the leader said the other day, there is only one Louise Farthing. I will try and be brief, but it will be very difficult as Louise has had such a long and distinguished career. Many of you in the chamber tonight may think, as a relative newcomer to the council, to express my gratitude to Louise may seem strange. Not only have I known her nearly 35 years, which is a bit of a frightening thing, so I can stand here saying I've known her quite well. Not only have I in respect of ward colleagues and residents, but she's helped many hundreds. But of course, particularly today, everyone knows her and respects her greatly for her work as portfolio in the children learning and skills. More of that to come. As I said, I first met Louise frighteningly more than 35 years ago. It was twofold, really. Louise was my local ward, Horton Ward councillor. I had so much respect for her, and I know my friends and other residents of Horton respected her so much. She did so much for the Horton town and was a great miss to many when she did move on. She was really valued by the Horton community. Then, of course, again, people may not know, I was an officer serving this council for many years and worked with lots of the members here today. And at times when I had to work with Louise and for Louise in many projects, we officers always had the respect and the knowledge, and we knew we had to be up to speed on all matters. She doesn't suffer fools gladly, especially council officers. And again, when she served as the city's mayoress, in her term, she was so vibrant and eloquent and carried out all of her duties representing this city with great style. Again, I worked with her on many major events and projects. She was devoted to bringing the very best to this city. I'm sure members throughout the chamber will agree that she's such an impressive speaker in debate, so clever, always researched, and has such a firm grip on all matters. I could easily imagine her in the House of Commons. What fun she would have in there. And of course, right up to date with her work with Together for Children, being involved with all issues and improvements, showing exactly the work and support as a lead member. Her contribution to the vast area of the very important work she does, many complex and difficult issues. The work is often very intense, not always headline grabbing, but vital to this city and to the many vulnerable children and families who we offer our support. I know, like us, the director and senior management and all staff from Together for Children really respect her and enjoyed working with her. She's helped them all achieve this success in their work. They said to me, leading up this day, that Councillor Farthing has been a tireless advocate for children and families throughout her political career. Since assuming her lead member role in 2016, she has championed innovation and improvement in the children's service and had suffered this setback of the Ofsted report in 2018 and brought every effort is to brace that up. Louise got to know the services well, going out to visit staff to hear about the challenges. She was always available for meetings and discussions with staff. She would always show up to events with the children and staff, and that ranged from judging cake baking competitions with cared for children, to fun days, to the celebrations in children's homes, and up to the achievement awards. From early years through to further education, she has been passionate about being inclusive and helping the vulnerable of this city. As the Children's Service Lead member, she now leaves with a full suite of inspection reports in place for the full Children's Service re-inspection of 2021. Louise can be rightly proud of her legacy to children and families in this city. Louise, in the past year as your portfolio deputy, I've been amazed and humbled at your skills. A personal thank you for your help and encouragement. You will be so much missed by all. We wish you well for the future. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Williams, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I'd like to add my thanks to everyone who's leaving. I do remember sitting in my first standards meeting with Councillor Gibson and Councillor Wood and thinking, oh my God, I'm absolutely out of my depth with these two. They know everything. But you helped me through that process and we got to the end of it. So, you know, it's good to see that we can work across with each other. Councillor Doyle, the mam in me just wants to give you lots of food and make you, make you bigger. But yeah, never mind. So I am standing here tonight to really say thank you and farewell to my colleague Len Loughlin, who is retiring from Washington Central. He's been part of the tight-knit team with myself and Diane for a number of years now. Len's always been the calm one. I'm quite jumpy and impulsive. Diane, not as much as me, but Len will sort of stand there and say, no, take some time, think about it. We're going to do it this way. So I'm going to miss that bit. I need somebody to bring us back to earth at times. I do remember one of the first times out canvassing with Len, I sort of said to him, right, okay, we're in this street, don't go to that house because there's an opposition councillor, an opposition candidate lives there. What did I find 10 minutes later? Len, stand at the door, talking to that person's husband and having a good chat about the whole system. There was another night we went out for some food before going to the count, and again another candidate came down and we sort of thought, oh, we must be going to the count. No, he came along. Congratulations, Len. You'll be fine tonight. I'm not going to the count. You're going to win anyway. So, you know, it's been good to have those times. Len and Sandra, his wife, have moved home 3 times during this term of office. They really seem to like moving into a place, getting it done absolutely beautifully, and then moving to the next one. So it was no surprise when he's leaving to go to yet another house. I do hope this is the final time and this settle. Len and Sandra now have 3 young grandsons, and you know, they are going to spend time and enjoy their life with that. I do believe he's managed the balance of his busy full-time work schedule, his family life and his councillor role with us. I'm going to miss him as an individual, and it didn't strike me till Monday night when somebody said, oh, Len's gone, and I thought, oh my goodness, I'm not going to see you that regularly. So I'm going to miss him telling me to calm down and take a breath, but I am really grateful that he's been part of Washington Central team, and I'd like to wish him and Sandra all the best in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Donaghy. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd just like to start off by saying thank you to Helen. She's well known and well liked by everyone in our community, and she'll be sorely missed. It's very unfortunate that Helen was deselected in such dubious circumstances by the Conservative group. After initially being selected to defend her seat, however, I've no doubt she will be as relieved as I am, and now Councillor Ali, to be out of the disarray that is the Conservative Party. As Councillor Ali has commented, it's disgusting the way she's been treated. On Councillors Doyle and Wood, undoubtedly the brains of the Conservative group, James is a walking encyclopedia, and Peter, as one of the most long-standing servants of the city, will be missed by all. The brains, wisdom and knowledge of the group have now gone. On Councillor Buick, I've got nothing but respect for you as a firefighter and a principled man who declined to join the Conservative Party over firefighters' pensions. And on my dear ward colleague Louise Farthing, let's not forget her. While being gracious in defeat, on my first day as a councillor, we met at City Hall, and her words of wisdom to me were, "It's not as easy as anybody thinks being a councillor," and I can safely say that is the only time that we've ever agreed on anything. And even though he's not standing down, I would like to take this opportunity to thank and commend the bravery and balls of steel on Councillor Ali for his decision. He's a well-respected councillor who everyone knows, both politically and privately, is an honourable, very good man. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Buick, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and councillors. I wasn't going to speak tonight, but I've just scribbled a few words down here just as thanks. I was elected in 2019, which was an eventful start of an eventful 4 years. I remember that on the day of the election, the night of the election, I was on night shift, as Pam's mentioned, so I couldn't get to the count. Obviously, I won the seat by the narrowest of margins, and then I checked on social media. I don't know if people knew at the time I had my own electrical business, and I was accused of organising a power cut in Ryop, so I would win, which definitely wasn't me. I ran for council originally. I'm sort of a resident who sort of, you either put up or shut up. Sick of moaning about stuff, so I put myself forward to try and help the residents of Ryop. And over this 4 years, I have worked for them as much as I can, trying to give 100%. Obviously, as a councillor going forward at this time, I cannot give 100% to my residents, so that's why I'm stepping back from it. But we have getting some good projects done, and there's still some good projects getting done within the Ryop ward. I've enjoyed working with all the councillors within the Ryop ward. When you're working with fellow councillors in the ward, it's not about different parties, it's about getting done for Ryop. When I started, it was Councillor Paula Hunt, and she's absolutely amazing and still is working in the community. Then Councillor Usman Ali, for you at that side. He got elected Usman for the community as well, and Martin as well when he's come in. It doesn't matter which parties I've worked with, we've done it for the community, so I'm over the moon with that. Even Michael Essel as well. It was a challenge, but I managed to work alongside him. So, again, everybody's got the views of Michael, but he does get things done. So, abrupt sometimes, but he is what he is. But most of all, I'd just like to thank all the councillors I've worked with and the committees I've been on, and the advice I've been given over that time. As Pam says, when we joined, I didn't have a clue. I still don't have a clue most of the time, but that's why I'm there. And I'd like to thank Elaine as well. Everything, whenever I didn't know something, I went to Elaine just to get advice, and I'll thank you for that. Just one last thing, as Graham mentioned too, the problems with antisocial behaviour in the Ryop ward. The residents will coming to the sort of elected councillors, and rather than bringing a motion to council to speak about it, I contacted Graham and we got stuff done. So, and I think sometimes that's the way to do it rather than bringing stuff to council. And that's all from me, Madam Mayor. Like you say, years to come now, I might come back and work with all the councillors. What party it might be, I don't know. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Buick. Councillor Truman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll be brief because we've got a lot of business, and I'm sure these ladies have come to listen to the debate that I'm sure we'll get to a bit later on. I want to single one member out of this council. But before I do that, just a little bit of history. I've joined as a councillor 25 plus years ago, and when I joined, it was predominantly senior males. Not as much senior than I, because I wasn't a young lad when I joined. I wasn't a Ben, but predominantly male, and everyone smoked. And if you went into a meeting, it was like walking into the fog of London. It was absolutely dreadful. There was cigars, there was pipes, there was cigarettes. And when you had a vote, if you put your hand up for a vote, well, you couldn't see who was voting. You couldn't see where they were or what their hands were. So I think what came out of that was this secret ballot. And even then, you couldn't see the ballot box. So if anybody had gone home and wanted somebody to vote for them, well, they got away with that. Because honestly, the fog was awful. But the gentleman who came out of that fog for me was Peter Gibson. Peter Gibson became a mentor not only of myself, but of a lot of new councillors. And I'm sure Councillor Paul should remember the days when I'm talking about, because Paul, even though he's still a bairn, I think he takes on the mantle of being the longest serving councillor on the council after our colleagues actually go. But Peter did mentor me, and he always said to us, be open, be honest, and as far as declarations go, if in doubt, shout. Doesn't matter what it is. And that I've held with me all the years that I've been a councillor. And the other stuff that Peter learnt me was how to chair a meeting, how to behave when you're at that council, how to respect each other, and how to respect officers. And again, I would like to think I carried that advice out. All the very best, Peter. I don't know what your plans are. I'm sure they'll be great. I know Betty, an ex-councillor, is not in great health, but I know you look after her very well, and she's a lovely lady. But once again, all those that retire and whatever you're going to go into, all the very best, because it takes a special sort of person to be a councillor. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Truman. Councillor Butler. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well wishes to everyone who's retiring this evening. But I would like to speak about one young chap who's been spoken about a lot, which is James Doyle, of course, and what an impression he's obviously made for so many councillors to speak directly about James. We were elected together in 2019, of course, which seems such a long time ago now. When I first met James, it was probably on the Development Control Committee. And he was sitting to my right, and I always remember this young, slender, handsome, wonderful, hair, skin complexion was perfect. And his double-breasted suit, and I thought, this chap is a perfect combination between Walter the Softy and Jacob Rees-Mogg, which is ironic because I read the Beano and James clearly reads the classics. And I was at such wonder how somebody could be so different, living 100 yards opposite to me, really, one side of Newcastle Road, as opposed to the opposite side. And in the middle was Thompson Park, for those that's playing Thompson Park bingo this evening. So I was absolutely flabbergasted how different we could be. And with his double-breasted suit, I asked James for a lend. Oh, sorry, is that the correct terminology? To borrow a pen. So James whipped out this wonderful calligraphy pen, and I'm sure it had a quill on or something like that, which I duly signed the sheet. We got to know each other properly on the planning committee, which, of course, I chaired, I guess, by default at those times. And coming into that, it was a big job, it was a big role, and there was a lot of development going on in Sunderland, and I knew little to nothing about planning. And of course, planning's a political committee, or it's supposed to be at least. And looking at that, coming to a Conservative for advice on his knowledge was unthinkable in the years preceding my appointment as the chair. However, it soon dawned on me that James was a gentleman of massive integrity, and he has amazing morals. And I think the good thing about that is that we put politics to one side and we become friends. And I mean that, James. And some people, some Labour councillors have even likened it to a bromance, which, you know, I'm more than happy with. James, in my opinion, is one of the best councillors that served on Sunderland Council while I've been a councillor. And I think his input into the planning committee, as other people have said this evening, is somewhat to be desired by all councillors who were appointed to that. He knew his brief. He read his papers inside out. And I always knew James would be asking pertinent questions to the planning application. And one thing that James never done, he didn't always vote with his party because, like I said, he was a man of integrity. And we spent an hour on the phone with you know, going over certain planning applications and things like that. And James was a massive help. And obviously, I thank him for his assistance with that. And I truly believe he's made some changes to how planning committees run. And it'll be a big miss to that and the wider council. So thank you, Madam Mayor, and the best of luck to all retirees as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Heron, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. There's one person I want to speak about tonight is Peter Gibson. As Councillor Truman, I've also been on the council for quite a long time. But I was also on licensing for quite a long time. And Peter Gibson was there with all the help and advice. And what he doesn't know about the licensing committee, I don't think anybody will know. He will be a great big miss on licensing, I've got to say. I think I'm losing a right arm when Peter goes, because even the new members would go to Peter for advice. So I'd like to wish Peter and Betty, she'll have a happy retirement for both of you. But also I'd like to thank Louise Farthing for all the work she's done with Together for Children, and how this council has really got a lot to thank Louise for, and the work she's done with the education portfolio. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Tighe, please.
Thanks, Madam Mayor, and I'm also going to speak for my ward colleague, Councillor Peter Gibson, and just say a few words in relation to that, if I may. I think that the first thing before I do start, though, I need to correct for the record that the position of statue on Tunstall Hill is actually taken, and it's Councillor Gibson, since we took Tunstall Hills from the St Michael's ward in the ward boundary review previously, and now that sits on ours, so Peter will get up there and it'll be left, and I'll explain why in a minute. We're left with the words on it, I flackered flacker, and I'm going to explain the reason for that. When Peter did stand for election, he actually beat an independent in Silchester, so at the time we had an independent councillor called Flacker Norman, and Peter did manage to defeat that councillor, and some of the long-serving councillors will remember that time. And to say that there was dancing in the streets on the night of that defeat is not a lie. That is absolute truth, and I think that went on until the early hours, certainly at the parties that Peter would hold after all of the count nights. It was well known that if we were going to go on, if anyone was going anywhere, it was to Peter's. And you're right, Harry, that's where he'd sit in his corner and drink his whiskey and smoke his pipe until he was quite content with that. I just want to mention a few of the accolades and things that he has done. And he's took his role extremely seriously. Just 2 years in being a councillor, he was actually the vice chair of public health, and for his reward for that was he was sent to a conference in Devon. Now, you can imagine what an exciting conference that must have been on public health and bins, and looking at wheelie bins at that particular point in time. It must have been riveting for him. And at that particular
conference that they were introducing this. Remember, this would have been 87, 88 at that particular point in time. They got to say wheelie bins for the first time, and wheelie bins were going to be were being touted as the future. And lo and behold, Peter was one of those councillors that come back to Sunderland and told us that we should consider wheelie bins, and there we are today with all of our wheelie bins and free bin replacements as well when the bins, just to show on that in. I just also want to mention a couple of things in relation to, I'm going to focus on and hasn't really been mentioned, his time as mayor and also his time as a governor of Farringdon School. First of all, I think it's absolutely obvious how seriously he took his role and took the role as mayor, as you've alluded to, Madam Mayor. And I just want to go back to one particular event in the old Civic Centre. He was holding a reception in there. I actually think it was the ward. It might have been the ward night where they'd taken members of the Silksworth ward to the meeting. And when they say the first citizen of Sunderland is the person that's always looked after, on that particular night he wasn't. The Civic Centre was abandoned, it was evacuated, the residents of Hendon were evacuated, and it's because they'd found a bomb in Sunderland. And they'd forgotten Peter was up there in the mayor's parlour entertaining his guests, and the whole rest of Sunderland in that area was evacuated. Yet Peter, completely oblivious to all this, was up there continuing his entertaining. I'd like to have been a fly on the wall when he found out what was going on and that he wasn't the first to know about that as first citizen of the city. The other thing I'm going to tell you, and this is down to my naivety, and obviously I was 11-year-old when he first became a councillor. But one of the things he told us is it was always an ambition of his to become the mayor, and he wanted to be the mayor. And he said there was that the mayor was the person that held the gun and the bullets in Sunderland if something had to be dealt with, if we were under attack. And this is a true story. Peter was the one that was to deal with that, was the first citizen of the city. And do you know what? I believed it for years and years and years, and kept wondering when we appointed different mayors, how on earth have the dead trust that person with the gun and the bullets? The only one thing I want to end on is in his time as a governor at Farringdon School, a school I actually did attend as well. I think he probably served 35 years as a governor of that particular school. And it's had its ups and downs over the years, but the positives that you've got to look at, he saw its transition to a sports college, the multi-million pounds investments on sports and leisure facilities, and the football pitches out the back, the sports complex that they got on there, and everything that came with that. He was also the chairman, so in that 35 years he was chairman of the Pupil Discipline Committee. He was terrible. He was terrible at that role. I'm going to tell you, it's the only role that he failed miserably at. He was biased, he didn't take any young people's views into consideration, and I think we'll leave him to tell you the reasons for that in his memoirs when he releases them. But other than that, thanks very much, Madam Mayor, and I hope you enjoy your retirement, Councillor Gibson.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Smith.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I'll be quick because time's going on. Peter was the marvellous example that anyone could have coming onto the council, because when I came on, I used to call it the old guys, and it wasn't just the men, it was the women, because everyone was older, a lot older than me. And often I was told by Peter, just shut up and sit down and do this, that and the other, which I did, which was unusual for me. We've had many laughs over the years, and for 37 years, he's brought the Labour victory back to Silksworth. He's lived with the people of Silksworth, and that's not easy when you have to do it every day, every weekend of every year. And he's done it, and they should give him a medal as big as one of these things here. So I would just say to him he'll be well missed by everyone, including me, because often I've got in the car with him on a Saturday morning when we've had to go to a meeting and I've been twisting. And he said, "It's your duty, Pat." And I've thought, right, off we go, another duty. So he will be well missed. And I'm sure Betty will miss him and all, wherever he does. But never mind. Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I would just like to wish everyone that's leaving the best. Helen and James and Peter and everybody that's going of being good councillors. And also, I'd like to wish you well, because you've been a heck of a good mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Gibson, you can have your say now.
I'm not going to disclose how many times I dismissed Councillor Tighe from Farringdon School, Madam Mayor, but it was quite a few. Quite a few. He wasn't the person he is now. I remember very, very clearly 37 years ago when I was elected, Madam Mayor, that night my opposition didn't turn up for the count. And he said to me the following day, he said, "I knew I was going to get beat, Peter." He says, "The best man won." That were his exact words to us. And the following year, he stood against my colleague and didn't win then. Then the following year, he stood against my other colleague and didn't win then. So he then dropped out of politics altogether. But I've managed to keep going for 37 years. And it's been stressful at times, Madam Mayor. I was very, very lucky in that I became the mayor of the city. And I remember well the chief executive at the time, Colin Sinclair, came to me and said, "Would you like to go to Barcelona, Mr. Mayor, with your wife?" And I thought, well, are we going to be twinned with Barcelona? What am I? He never mentioned what I was going for. Never mentioned that at all. Just, would you like to go to Barcelona? So at the finish I said, well, yes, Chief Executive, I would like to go, yeah. And he says, all right. He says, I'll send you the details out. And when the details came out, there weren't any details, there were just 2 plane tickets. One for me, one for Betty. And when I looked at the plane tickets, I said to Betty, I said, there's something wrong here. She says, what's the matter like? I says, well, these are only one way. Is he trying to tell me something? Does he want rid of me? There's no coming back here, Betty. But when we got to Barcelona, we had the pleasure and the honour of being guests on HMS Ocean. And we sailed back from Barcelona to Plymouth on HMS Ocean for 8 days at sea. And they were the best times of our mayoral year. It was absolutely fantastic. I'll never forget them times, Madam Mayor. And I know that, you know, there are hundreds of functions that you have to attend when you're mayor. You know, but that one sticks out in my mind. I'll never forget it. And I did manage, on the final day, I must tell you this, on the final day of the voyage back to Plymouth, through the Bay of Biscay, into the channel, and the captain said, right, I'll put the landing craft down into the sea, and you can all go and have a go on the landing craft. So also on HMS Ocean at that time were some students from a naval college in Kent. they were part of the company that was guests on board of HMS Ocean. And they got down into the landing craft, lowered into the sea. I had to go steering the craft. There was 2 landing craft in the sea at the time, so you went over each other's wakes and bounced about a bit. And after I'd left the wheelhouse, there was a narrow passage you had to walk along to get back into the hold of the landing craft. And as I was going along, side by side, feet, a young student from this naval college took over the wheel. And he slammed the accelerator full on, put a hard lock on the wheel, and I was hanging onto this rail with my feet dangling over the sea. And the captain of the Marines, who was with us on the landing craft, was yelling, "We're going to lose the mayor, we're going to lose the mayor." But we managed to get us back on board safely. Madam Mayor and colleagues, I have thoroughly enjoyed my time on Sunderland City Council. I've never, ever had a dull moment. There's been some times when there's been close to, but never a dull moment. So thank you all for tolerating me for this 37 years. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you for everything, Councillor Gibson. And finally, last but by no means least, Councillor Farthing.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good wishes to everyone else who was finishing tonight. Those that, like me, that have decided, like Peter, I think, has decided he doesn't want to be like Joe Biden, because I keep thinking about Joe and thinking, it's time you went, Joe. And I'm thinking, people will be saying the same about you, Louise. But it was a while ago that I decided that the 2020, which didn't take place, it actually was the 2021 election, would be my last. So it hasn't been an immediate decision. It was one that was made quite some time ago. However, the fact that I would be standing here tonight to speak to you all about being a councillor has been a period of reflection. I think the last 3 weeks since the Chief Executive mentioned it at the Civic Ball, and I thought, oh, really? Yes, what will I say? And first thing I'm going to say is thank you to all my colleagues here that make the council work, but particularly to the officers who do all that operational stuff. Thank you to officers. I always try and remember to say thank you to officers. And of course, I must say, with wholehearted sincerity to the staff of TFC and the leadership of TFC, you've done a magnificent job, and it's amazing that we've got that outstanding accreditation by Ofsted. But since then, we've had several more inspections, and the most recent one was the JTI into early help. And certainly the TFC side of that came out with glorious colours. And it was good for me, because for me, prevention has always been better than cure. Which again, my reflection was, I'm always coming out with these sort of cliched sayings, and the officers must really get sick of it. So there's that one, and then there's carrot and stick, and then the other one is, I heard something on the radio the other day, or I read about this the other day, or so-and-so's doing this over there, and what do our statistical neighbours do? I'm sure they're really sick of it. For me, I've gone through that sort of reflection. I've looked at what maybe influenced me to come into politics. And to be quite honest, I really don't know. But one of the things that came to mind was, as a little girl, I spent an awful long time with my grandmother. I only had one because my mother's mother died before I was born. And my father's mother must have been a young woman at the time of the suffragettes. And I'd never, ever even connected that before. And I can't ever remember her talking to me about suffrage movement, but she certainly indulged me in all sorts of ways. So maybe she did influence me. And I know that it wasn't something that I was aware of during her lifetime, because she died when I was about 10, that my father mentioned that she'd actually been able to drive. She'd learnt to drive as a young woman. Now, that must have been at the time when motor cars were first on the road. So she must have been a goer, as we'd say where I come from. Which was the other thing. Why am I here in Sunderland? I'm not born and bred in Sunderland. I came to Sunderland to study at the School of Pharmacy. And soon after that I came, and it was at the old technical college, which is, for the young ones, is now the nightclub in Green Terrace, but it actually was the technical college where I actually studied. I found I was pregnant. And in those days, there was no opportunity for a young woman or a young married woman to continue with a young child. So I didn't get involved in anything until my children were at an age where I could get a job and do things. And I joined the civil service. So I think the civil service actually helped me a lot, because it helped me understand how a large organisation works. So when I got involved with being a local councillor, I really had an understanding of how the mechanics of the council work, which I think for some of the speakers tonight has been a bit daunting, because it is an organisation which takes a while to get to know. And in my career in the civil service, I was originally the Inland Revenue, which became HMRC, and I was an inspector of taxes. I was an investigator, but for the majority of my career, I was a manager, and we had to I managed everything from investigations, risk assessment, quality assurance, customer service, you name it, I've managed it. Which, to some extent, has really helped me, I think, in my role in the lead member for Children's Services, because I really understood what you needed to do, and I understood what was going on in the background in Children's Services in order to get that accreditation with Ofsted. So it was helpful to me to have had that background, and you can always bring your background to what you do as a councillor. Somebody today, my colleague here, described me as dogged, and I think, well, probably I'm a bit dogged. And he was referring to my doggedness about tree management, which, I have gone on about a lot. And it also made me reflect on the other things that I've touched in the council and what's happening. Now, quite a long time ago, Paul Watson, I can remember him saying in a meeting of the senior leaders, he didn't want the officers to respond to the app Fix My Street, because it took a lot of time and effort, and he didn't want them to do it. And I thought, oh, well, you can't really do that. But since then, I think the groups that I've been on in the ICT working group was to get something like Fix My Street, a sort of app. And we've almost got there with Report It. And I would encourage all councillors to encourage their residents to use, the Report It system, because I think the closing thing, as has been said, we are public servants as councillors, but we're not their slaves. And I think that to support them to help themselves is the way forward. And I think, again, returning to the fact that I'm leaving, what a time to leave. So much buoyancy in the city centre. I can never remember anything like we have now. The cranes in the sky, the green wall on the new car park, the film industry. What's it? Pallywood, everyone's saying? I mean, for me, that's so wonderful that all of this vibrancy is coming to the city. Because the other topic that you've all heard me talk about is child poverty. And the only way we're going to overcome child poverty is having good education and good jobs in this city. So I wish you all well with developing the city of the future. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. It's been wonderful to hear such marvellous tributes, and I'm sure everyone agrees the councillors who are leaving will be greatly missed. I'm going to ask you now, as we are well into the night's time and a lot of business to get through, to see if we can have someone will move that we have a variation of order of business tonight. We would like to take item 11, item 13.2 and the WASPI Women motion priority. The ladies have been very patient, sitting waiting to hear. Would like to bring that forward if someone is prepared to move that.
I so move, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Leader. And someone to second?
Second, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Deputy Leader. We will do that. Then we will come back to the business of the evening when we have time. Sorry. Is everyone agreed to that? Agreed. Thank you. We'll move now to the report of the Human Resources Committee. I call upon the Leader to move the approval and adoption of the report of the Human Resources.
I so move, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Deputy Leader, do you second the report?
I second the report, Madam Mayor.
Leader, would you like to speak to the Human Resources report?
Time's moving on, Madam Mayor. The report's fully laid out. I've got nothing else to say on the matter. Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Leader, do you wish to speak?
Nothing further to add, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. If anyone wishes to speak on this report, will you please raise your hand now and state whether you have an amendment, a comment or a question? Councillor Hartnag.
Councillor Hartnag.
Yes, we have. Okay, thank you, Councillor Hartnag.
Yes, Madam Mayor, basically it's an amendment to the report. I can't support the accuracy of the report as it fails to properly reflect that which I and colleague councillors have attempted on numerous occasions to have recorded into the minutes of the Human Resources Committee, which has continually failed to accurately record minutes in agreement with elected representatives that the process of market pay supplements should be reviewed. I refer, Madam Mayor, to page 39 of the report, final paragraph marked market pay supplements, which in my view hides a myriad of unsatisfactory process, allowing the Chief Executive alone to determine additional market supplement pay, which is also uplifted for annual pay awards each year without redress to a committee to justify such decisions. The process is in reality looks very much like keeping your senior mate sweet with big pay bonuses for which nobody is accountable. This surely can't be right. These market payments are made at the discretion of the Chief Executive alone, under a methodology which is quite frankly a mystery, despite requests made to the HR committee and the inaccurate recording of minutes. Nobody has been able to explain or demonstrate in writing the so-called objective methodology adopted and to justify the payment of those awards, which for this financial year amount to £72,000 additional pay bonus shared between 5 executive directors in this council. Most of our executive directors have been receiving this payment since 2017. And as an example, our Executive Director of City Development receives a market supplement of £23,000 on top of a salary of over £130,000. This report, Madam Mayor, in my submission should be altered to accurately reflect the truth around the process and to highlight that the process for the awarding and constant monitoring of the need for market pay supplements is currently under review. So finally, the final paragraph on page 39, Madam Mayor, should be appended to include that the process for awarding market pay supplements is currently under review, and that would satisfy the accuracy of the report. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Just give me a moment, please. Do we have a seconder for that amendment? Thank you, Councillor Mullen. I'm being given to understand that this was already agreed or committed to. Please lead. Thank you, Chief.
Councillor
Councillor Hartnack has raised that at a previous meeting at HR committee. We said we would review this, so it is under review, and we will bring this back to HR committee in due course.
Thank you. Is everyone agreeable to that process? Agreed. Thank you very much. Thank you. We'll now move on to the appointments to Together for Children, Sunderland Limited. And I don't know where I am. I'm asking the leader. The next item, the reports, which includes a report of the leader on special urgency decisions and a report and supplementary report on appointments to the Together for Children Sunderland Limited TFC board. We will take these in turn, starting with the leader's report on special urgency decisions. Leader, would you please move the report?
I so move the report, Madam Mayor. There have been no special urgency decisions taken.
Thank you very much. Deputy Leader, do you second the report?
Second the report, Madam Mayor.
Does the Council agree to receive the report?
Agreed.
Thank you. Next, we will deal with the report and supplementary report on appointments to Together for Children Sunderland Limited. Leader, would you please move the report?
I so move the report, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Deputy Leader, do you second the report?
I second the report, Madam Mayor.
Leader, do you wish to speak to the report?
No, Madam Mayor, it's fully laid out.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak on the report, the supplementary report for Together for Children? Thank you. Is the report agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you very much. We'll now move the business on to item 21, page 21. The notice of motion on women against state pension inequality. And I invite Councillor Laws to read and move the motion.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, Council notes that in the 1995 Pension Act, the Government increased state pension age for women from 60 to 65, with a further increase to 66 in the 2011 Pensions Act. The change was not properly communicated to 3.8 million women born in the 1950s until 2012, giving some only 1 year's notice of a 6-year increase in their anticipated retirement age. 18,000 of the affected women are in our own authority area and a total of 65,000 in the North East. The source is the copy of the CBP 07405 Constituency Estimates House of Commons Library. The Parliamentary and Health Service Ombudsman has found that the Department for Work and Pensions was guilty of maladministration in its handling of the state pension age increase for women born in the 1950s. The All-Party Parliamentary Group on State Pension Inequality for Women has concluded that the impact of DWP maladministration on 1950s born women has been as devastating as it is widespread. The APPG believes that the case for Category 6 injustice is overwhelming and clear. Women have had their emotional, physical and mental circumstances totally obliterated by the lack of reasonable notice. Research commissioned by campaign group WASPI has found that by the end of 2022, more than 220,000 1950s born women will have died waiting for the justice since the WASPI campaign began in 2015. WASPI's figures show that over the course of the 2-year COVID pandemic, 1 in 10 women who died was affected by these uncommunicated changes and lost both their state pension income and the opportunity to make alternative retirement plans. Despite the Ombudsman's findings and the rapid death rate of those affected, the Government is choosing to wait for further reports before taking any action. Council believes this injustice has not only had a profound effect on the individuals involved, but on the wider community in Sunderland and on local government, not least because women who would have looked after older relatives or partners are unable to afford to do so, with a knock-on impact on local social care. Women who have retired and engaged in caring responsibilities for grandchildren are having to continue working, increasing the childcare burden on the state locally. Women who have been left in poverty are struggling to meet their housing costs with a knock-on impact on local housing stock. There is a broader impact on voluntary services of all kinds locally, which are missing out on able, active volunteers who would otherwise have been able to retire from full-time work as planned. Our local economy is negatively affected by the reduced spending power and disposable income the uncommunicated state pension age changes has brought about among women born in the 1950s. Council supports the conclusion of the all-party parliamentary group on state pension inequality that women born in the 1950s have suffered a gross injustice affecting their emotional, physical and mental circumstances in addition to causing financial hardship. A swift resolution to this ongoing injustice before more and more women die waiting for compensation, and the WASPI campaign asks for an immediate one-off compensation payment of between £11,666 and £20,000 to those affected, with the most going to the women who were given the shortest notice of the longest increase in their state pension age. Madam Mayor, I move the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Laws. Councillor Chisnell, would you like to second the motion?
I would like to second the motion, and I would also like to kindly speak after Councillor Sean Laws on the motion.
Thank you. Councillor Laws, do you wish to speak to the motion?
I do. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, on Wednesday, the 8th of March, International Women's Day, we lit the city's landmarks purple, following a request I made to the leader, to show our support for the women of Sunderland. In this chamber today, we are surrounded by charismatic, intelligent women. Visionary women who are fearless in driving this city forward, and I want to speak to you about some of them now. Our Deputy Leader, who's just walked out, our Deputy Leader, my friend Claire Rowntree, whose commitment to improving lives of the people in this city is an inspiration to me, and I know that we are better for having her in our leadership team. Supported in the Cabinet by Kelly Checker, Fiona Miller, Linda Williams, a WASPI woman herself, and Louise Farthing. Some of what I'm about to say has obviously already been said. Louise is standing down in May, and I think that everyone in this chamber can agree that we will be losing vast experience, knowledge and determination. The achievement in transforming Together for Children from inadequate to outstanding is something that's never been done before. And councils across this country are looking to us for good practice as a result. And I should also mention Jill Colbert at the back there in that, while I talk about inspirational women. Diane Snowden, you've spoken in the past, you have spoken about the domestic abuse in your past, and we all recognise your bravery and determination to overcome those experiences. Juliana Herron, the support that you gave to the miners throughout the miners' strike has left a lasting impression on your local community. I couldn't talk about the influential women of this council without mentioning our Mayor, Alison Smith, who has chaired these meetings and represented our city with grace and with dignity. Of course, there are exceptional women in other political parties, and indeed not in political parties. The reason that I mention the women of this chamber is because circumstances could have dictated that any one of those women could have been affected by the changes that the Tyne and Wear WASPI group, who we have here with us today, have been affected by. And I want to give you a few examples of how they have been affected. For example, this lady who was retired from her role as a head of department in a secondary school at age 58. She has a hearing impairment which made life in a classroom with secondary school kids quite difficult. She said that she believed that she would manage for 2 years until 60 and receives her state pension. A year after she retired, she got a letter to say that she would receive that state pension at age 66. She was horrified. And having tallied up the money that she's lost because of that lack of communication at the proper time, she's lost £38,000. Or this lady, forced to take early retirement because of ill health, having had a brain tumour, both hips replaced and heart surgery, only to be informed by the DWP 18 months before she expected to draw her pension about these changes with no time to take account for the financial change. She also mentions about the effect that that has had on her wider family, and a particular thing that I picked out of this is the effect that it's had on her husband's mental health. Because of the changes in the finances, she said that the husband feels as though he's letting his family down, and she said that she never envisaged seeing him in such a state of poor mental health. Or the this lady who had to sell her family home and plug a gap of 6 years, still working part-time, some shifts starting work at 4:30, 5:30 in the morning. She had applied for 49 jobs before she eventually got this job, which was quite clearly not ideal for somebody with her physical health problems. She's 65, her retirement plans are up in smoke, suffers with anxiety, she's been in counselling, emotionally drained, no savings left. She suffers with crippling arthritis and is unable to sleep. And she ends by saying, "I can't see much of a future left for me now." The exceptional women of this chamber that I spoke about before these examples are the same women affected by these changes across this region and across this country, and I do not believe that we can justify the impact that it has had on them. Madam Mayor, I am honoured to move this motion on behalf of these courageous women. I move the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Laws. Are there any amendments to this motion to be heard? Thank you. Would anyone like to speak on this motion?
Madam Mayor, we've already received notice from Councillor Watson.
Councillor Watson.
Councillor Crosby. Councillor Farthing. Councillor Williams. Councillor Mullen. Councillor Ali. Councillor Snowden.
Okay. Thank you very much. Councillor Watson, please.
Madam Mayor, point of order. I did ask if I could speak directly after Councillor Laws.
Sorry, I did
ask to speak directly after Councillor Laws to second the motion.
It doesn't come directly after, it's further down the list. The other people speak first and you speak after.
Madam Mayor, perhaps I could clarify through yourself, Councillor Chisnell, whether you reserve the right to speak later in the debate, or if you prefer, you can come in straight after it's...
I did ask to speak directly.
Sorry,
after
I thought you
reserved
reserved the right to speak, which would come later in the debate. My apologies. We'll take you first then. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm seconding this motion because as a woman myself, I feel that the Tory government's 1995 State Pension Act was not only an underhanded tactic not to pay the 3.8 million women without lack of appropriate notification and by pushing the bill through much faster than they were promised. But I also believe that the government at this time thought because they were women, they would sit quietly and just let it pass and just let it slip. Well, how wrong the government was at that point. In 1995, the then Conservative government legislated to increase the women's state pension age from 60 to 65 by April 2020. Yet in the years following, these changes were not communicated to the affected women. Many only received notice of a change after the state pension age was raised again by the Pension Act in 2011. Women born in the 1950s were victims of the Parliamentary and Health Service Ombudsman has branded maladministration. Some found out about the postponement of their state pension as late as 2012, getting only 1 year's notice of a 6-year delay to their retirement. Many of these women gave up work earlier to take up caring roles, again an unpaid role which saves the government billions of pounds each year as they thought they'd be able to manage on their savings until they reach that pensionable age. In 2021, the Parliamentary and Health Service Ombudsman again released a report finding maladministration on part of the DWP in relation to its communication of these changes. Sadly though, one 1950s woman dies every 13 minutes while they wait for the compensation that they so rightly deserve. WASPI is not against the equalisation of the state pension age. WASPI is not asking for the state pension age to be put back to 60. WASPI is not looking to make back all of the money from the lost changes of the state pension age. That all asking for is fair and fast compensation that they so rightly deserve. The government cannot afford to drag its feet on this issue anymore. Please don't allow another woman, mother, gran or somebody's aunt pass away without them allowing to receive the compensation they so rightly deserve. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Watson, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. WASPI, quite appropriate name given the sting in this particular tale. When the government decided to increase the state pension age for women, changes came as a shock to many, with women discovering they had to wait up to 6 years longer for the state pension. Angela Maiden, Chair and Financial Director of WASPI, has stated, the statistics say one WASPI woman is dying every 13 minutes. Every 13 minutes. This is incredibly sobering. As I look around the room tonight, I know some of you, your mothers, your grandmothers, are affected by this travesty. I sadly know of WASPI women who have passed away waiting for this to be rectified. Why are we still waiting for this to be resolved? It is a glaring case, in my opinion, not just inequality, but also gender inequality. It's unfair, it's unjust, and it needs to be sorted now. Once again, women are treated disgracefully and deserve to be compensated. They deserve a swift resolution before more women die waiting for this compensation. Or dare I say it, is this what the government wants? Financially, mentally, emotionally and physically, they have suffered through this inept government. In 2021, the findings of the investigation by the Parliamentary Health Service Ombudsman condemned the UK Department for Work and Pensions for the maladministration relating to changes in women's state pensions. The Ombudsman's findings vindicated the campaign by WASPI and condemned the DWP for failing to provide accurate, adequate and timely information about changes to the state pension age for women. So for the 18,000 women in Sunderland and the 65,000 women across the North East, I am asking you to support this notice of motion and give justice for the women against state pension inequality. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Crosby, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Today I'd like to speak to you about an issue that affects a group of women, including my cousin Susan, who've been unjustly treated by the pension system. The government introduced changes to the state pension age for women born in the 1950s with the aim of equalising the pension age with that of men. However, many of these women were not given enough notice of the changes, leaving them with little time to prepare for their retirement. This has resulted in many of them facing financial hardship, having to work longer than expected, or relying on savings to make ends meet. These women have worked hard throughout their lives, often sacrificing their careers to care for their families, and they deserve to be treated fairly by the pension system. It's unacceptable that they should be penalised for something that was completely out of their control. The Tory government has a responsibility to address this issue and provide a solution that is fair and just for the affected women. It is not enough to simply ignore their plight and hope that it will go away. While there may be challenges in implementing the proposals of between £11,000 and £20,000, it is essential that the government takes urgent action to provide financial support for the affected women. The plight of the WASPI women is a matter of social justice that demands our attention. We must stand with these women and support their cause, calling on the government to take action to provide them with the support and financial security they deserve. The Liberal Democrats will be supporting this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Farthing, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I want to sort of speak really from not personal experience, because I'm too old to be affected by this. It's one of the benefits of being born in the 1940s. But I worked with women who were affected by it. Women who had planned and were looking forward to retiring at 60. Women who were in ill health, who had back pain. In particular, one woman who was on my team who did a lot of my quality assurance work. She was very conscientious. She never sort of missed anything. She picked up all the things that were wrong, but used to bring them to me. But she was often off ill. She was in pain. She paid a fortune on physiotherapy for her back. She had a special chair at work, and she'd really look forward to retiring at 60. And of course, she couldn't, because she was born too young. And I think there must be so many other women in that situation. And it really is awful if you sort of look forward to something. Now, she happened to be a single woman. And as a single person, she had, a household to run. She ran a car as well. She just couldn't afford, without that state pension, to retire. So I really do have a lot of empathy for the women, and I do wish them all well with this campaign. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Williams, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As Councillor Laws has mentioned there, and I declared, I am one of those affected women. When I was nearly 15, I took on a caring role for my mother, which I did for the next 30 years. I brought up 3 children during that time, and it wasn't until I was about 53 I actually realised I wasn't going to be able to get a pension at 60. That's just my story. It's really, which isn't as bad when you look at the examples that Councillor Laws has raised there. But I do have some friends who are in quite dire situations and could really do with being able to go now. I think it's about time we got this right. There does need to be an equality, I would agree, between retirement ages, but you can't disadvantage a group of people for that reason. I did what I thought was right to be able to do that caring both for my mother and for my children, but it didn't work out for me. I think no regrets for what I did, but had I known earlier, I would have been able to plan better. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mullen, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was taken aback then and almost missed my turn. I'm quite surprised that Councillor Williams is of retirement age. You look far too young, Linda. There is consensus in the room tonight on this, because the Conservative group will be supporting it as well. Although I would just point out to Councillor Crosby, because she said there that the Tory government did X, Y and Z. The Minister of State for Pensions, when the Act came in 2011, was Steve Webb, who was a Liberal Democrat, not a Conservative. Slight misremembering of who else was in government there, Meg. But I share in what Louise Farthing said about the empathy and compassion, and so all of my group will be supporting the motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ali, please.
Hi. Well, it seems like the freedom of speech on this side feels like much more my kind of thing. The air seems clean on this side as well. It just feels great. Well, I came in terms of the WASPI movement. I met one of my residents, Anne Carter, and I'm sorry I've not been able to prepare a speech about this today. My former party had told me we weren't allowed to speak on it, even though Anthony spoke on it now. I would have prepared something a bit better on it.
Point of order.
Thank you. Councillor.
Thank you. Point of personal clarification. It wasn't that the Conservative group couldn't speak on it, it was that Usman couldn't speak on it, because on Monday he rang me to say he didn't know if he could support it or not.
Thank you for the clarification. Carry on, Councillor.
Did you just say that you didn't know if I was going to support it or not? I mean, look at my Facebook, Anthony. I've been supporting it all along. What are you on about?
Second point of personal clarification. You need to sit. Second point of personal clarification, Madam Mayor. I know that it was on your Facebook because when that was the problem, you'd committed to supporting it publicly and they didn't know if you could privately, which was what our last discussion was about.
Right, thank you, Councillor.
Thanks,
I think
Anthony,
we need to move.
I became a councillor to help my residents, and you're just in it for the party politics, aren't you? Let's face it. You're just in it for the party politics. You don't care about the residents. Now, before I was interrupted, as I said, I'd come across Anne Carter, who's a lovely woman, who's actually a WASPI woman from Ryop. And, you know, when she told me about this travesty of justice, I couldn't believe my ears. And I do feel it's something that needs to get rectified by the Conservative government. And it doesn't matter whose fault it is. If it's not your fault, if it's the Liberal Democrats' fault, it doesn't matter. You need to get it sorted. It's an injustice. Because without a woman, there would be no man. And we have to respect what these women have gone through. And I will be fully supporting this motion. And I think that's what you need to start doing more, actually caring about what your residents think, rather than the politics. Thanks, Anthony.
Thank you. Councillor David Snowden,
Point of order. Point of order, Madam Mayor.
Yes.
Thank you. One final one. Can I take from the final comment that Councillor Ali has withdrawn his parliamentary candidacy application?
Okay. Thank you.
Point of clarification.
Quickly, quickly.
Yes, I have. What's that got to do with what we're dealing with right now, Anthony?
Okay,
exactly
thank you,
my point at hand. You just, all you care about is political scoring. That's all you care about. Virtue sick.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor, thank you. Councillor Snowden.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think in my day job, as advice work for a local charity, I've seen the consequences of this policy on a number of women for a number of years, particularly the single women, and particularly people who are women who've been divorced. And they're consequently frightened of being sanctioned, where they're going to lose the only money that they've got coming into the household, because they've got to look for work when they're expected to retire. And in some cases, they can't work because they've got health issues, like Councillor Farthing was saying. But just yesterday, I will tell you this story, and it is a true story. I sat in a community centre in Hetton, and I've been dealing with this lady who came to see me for about 2 or 3 years, and she's always worked, but she's had to pack in work before COVID due to ill health. And I've helped manage her, helping apply for jobs and keep her benefits in place. And yesterday, she came to see me so I could help her claim a pension because she's going to retire on the 1st of June. So I've sorted the paperwork out for that. And as part of the conversation we had, she said to me, she says, "Do you know what, David?" She says, "I'm really glad this has come." She says, "I was so worried about getting me money stopped. And I've had to endure, I'll not tell you which agency it was, she's had to endure going to appointments with an agency where she had to get 3 buses just to keep the benefits in place because she could not afford to lose income." And that is a true story. And that woman's coming back to see me in June when she gets a state pension, and I'm going to make sure she's getting all her entitlements and she can enjoy her retirement because she's really in bad health. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Excuse me, I've lost my page. Oh, Councillor Laws, it's your right of reply if you'd like it now.
No, I'm all right. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
We'll now vote on the motion. Thank you. Do we just want to agree it? Does everyone agree? Agreed. Thank you very much, everybody. So you are agreed of the full support of this council, ladies. We'll be concluding council business, carrying on with ours. So, ladies, you're very welcome to leave if you want to do so. You don't have to endure any more of our speeches. No way, no way. In view of the shortage of time that we have left to us, the Deputy Leader has offered to provide a written carbon reduction update to all members, and therefore we could proceed to item 17 unless any member wishes to move a further variation in order of business tonight. For example, taking questions from the public. Prior to that, I just want to say, before we move on, I would like to advise members that the provision of written responses to questions from members has been raised with me. I request that any member who indicates that they will provide a written response endeavours to do so within 10 days. Okay, so with your agreement, we will have a written report on the carbon reduction. Councillor Mullen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can I ask permission to ask a question on that, following on from the last update?
I am advised I will make the decision that we will leave it for tonight. We're going to get a written report and you see the content of the report before you produce a further question. Okay, thank you. All right. So we now move on to item 7, outstanding motions from the last ordinary meeting of the Council. I am advised that the notice of motion on dangerous trees has been withdrawn, but I'd like to ask Councillor Donaghy to give us a very brief outline of why it's been withdrawn.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. When I first submitted this motion, I've received numerous complaints regarding what was perceived to be a lack of action in response on dangerous trees by the Council. The reported section on the Council's website was not accepting new referrals. Naturally, this was very frustrating for residents. However, since the maintenance tree section on the Council's website appears to have been updated on the 16th of March, I believe, it now clearly states priority levels with action and responses. I would still like to see priority given to the vulnerable residents and our schools, but that's something that can be discussed with officers at a later time. I know we all appreciate how hard our Arbor team work, and I hope as a council we can provide them support, equipment, manpower and funding that they need to do their job. And while I've quickly got the floor, Madam Mayor, can I just remind any councillors looking to the fact there is more than 3 parties in Sunderland at the moment? Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on. The next item on the agenda is reception of petitions. Do any members have petitions? Councillor Heron. Councillor Madam Mayor, yes.
Councillor Heron, Councillor Hartnack, Councillor Mann, Councillor Mullen. So, Madam Mayor, I have Councillors Tighe, Heron, Hartnack, Mann and Mullen.
And Councillor Wood.
And Councillor Wood.
Thank you. Councillor Tighe, please.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I've got a petition from 52 residents of Edward Street in Silksworth requesting the council consider a one-way street like the rest of the streets that are joined on, residential streets that join on from Silksworth Terrace, Madam Mayor. I'll leave it at that rather than speaking.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Heron.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We, the undersigned, hereby petition Sunderland City Council to adopt the communal green space in Phase 1 of Heriton Grange New Bottle, Hopeley Spring, and it's signed by over 100 residents of the area.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Hartnack.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've got 2 petitions to present. The first one being a petition signed by all residents of Seafields and Seaburn, other than 2 who are currently on holiday. The petition highlights the ongoing problems created by this council, who decided under delegated authority to install WL lines on the roads known as Lowry Road and Seafields, which in turn lead to the Seafields housing estate. For some reason better known to the delegated decision makers, they've left 2 short gaps which are causing danger to other road users. That's the first one. The second one, Madam Mayor, is the presentation of a petition on behalf of the lead petitioner, Peter Noble, and residents of Washington, more particularly those living close to the Holiday Inn in Ayton. And for over 3 years, residents have seen a huge increase in antisocial behaviour and criminality by a number of council referrals housed at the hotel by North East local authorities. Residents' homes have been burgled, used needles have been discarded in children's parks, and sex offenders housed at the hotel by Sunderland Council have preyed on children leaving school. The petition has 508 signatures from residents, and they're saying enough is enough. Most recently, there's been a burglar from there convicted and received 2 months imprisonment. The same petition is also being presented to other North East councils who continue to use the hotel. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Mann.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have two petitions to present this evening. The residents of Pickering Road in Pennywell. We, the undersigned 9 residents of Pickering Road, Pennywell, Sunderland, beg to petition Council regarding the use of our residential street as a side entrance for the Chestergate development. Over 3 years, the street where we live, many of us for decades, has been used by contractors, subcontractors, all kinds of heavy construction, traffic and constant delivery of building materials with absolutely no consideration to the residents. We accept that the development is a good thing and have put up with the traffic knowing that the site will eventually be completed. However, we object to the fact that whilst the development has its own entrance from Chester Road and all the new houses and residents are happily free from construction, traffic, noise and damage, we must bear the effect of constant disturbance, which is impacting on our quality of life and mental health. The highway is filled with deep potholes, which is damaging to our vehicles, is only rarely filled with dolomite by the developers. There is constant mud and dust sprayed in our street, on our cars and the windows of our houses from the construction vehicles. There is constant noise and rumbling, which is disturbing. There are early morning queues of vehicles parking in our street, awaiting the opening of the site, blocking the road and breaking the pavement. We ask that Council intervene with the developers regarding this situation and update us. We ask how long this will continue and if any alternate entrance can be used. We ask that the Highways Department meet with us to hear our issues and forward this to the developers, asking them for compliance. We have attached various photos of what we are facing daily and look forward to hearing from you. Thank you. The second one, Madam Mayor, if I may. Thank you. Speak ahead. Is from 53 residents of Stirling Close and the surrounding streets of Broadway Estate. We, the undersigned, 53 residents of aforementioned, beg to petition Council regarding serious antisocial behaviour in, around and through the residential development where we live, some of us for nearly 2 decades. When the developers planned and built the estate on the site of the former Broadway Secondary School, they included 2 link paths into the Barnes Park extension, which had not previously existed. The placement of these pathways leading directly into our estate at Stirling Close is now an access point for various forms of antisocial behaviour. We have witnessed an escalation of the following: gangs entering the estate and deliberately damaging property and vehicles, throwing mud, eggs and bottles at houses. Unregistered dirt bikes being ridden at speed through our estate from the park, threatening and hostile behaviour from gangs towards residents, residential burglaries occurring with criminals using the park link paths as access, unleashed dogs running into the estate, putting our children at risk. Regarding the park itself, gangs in the park allegedly using drugs and alcohol and being verbally abusive to residents, fire setting adjacent to our properties, sometimes within a few feet of our homes, causing personal danger. Antisocial behaviour on the play park, being threatening towards park users. Crime and antisocial behaviour is happening because of the access points which we believe should not be there. We propose that if the 2 footpaths within Stirling Close leading to the park were closed off, this would eliminate most of the crime on the estate. These issues are affecting our quality of life and our mental health. They also affect us financially because of the damage caused. We therefore petition Council to address these issues by working with the residents and the developers to close off these pathways, blocking entrance to our estate from the Barnes Park extension. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Mullen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have 3 petitions to hand in, which I'll just summarise. The first is from residents of and around the Coach Road, 93 people calling to turn grass verges into much-needed parking. The second calls on the council to apologise for claiming that the cancellation of the air show was down to environmental reasons, when the subsequent response from the question put at last council said that it was financial. And the third, from residents of High Barnes, calling on Sunderland Council to scrap the CPMS parking permit charges following a series of incorrect enforcement actions being taken against residents, including 2 residents who had valid permits on display who the council threatened to take to court.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've got a petition signed by residents of Meadowside and the surrounding area in St Michael's Ward on the subject of school streets and the enforcement of parking, asking for the introduction of school streets and more enforcement. That's it, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. Can we agree to refer these to the appropriate Chief Officer? Thank you very much. We now move to the written questions by members of the public. And I will read out the questions that we have received. The first question is from David Sinclair, Christmas trees in City Hall. Given the current financial situation, what was the justification on spending over £7,000 on Christmas trees for the reception area of City Hall, especially when the money could have been spent better elsewhere? Councillor Williams, you're going to respond?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So City Hall is a key focal point for the city and a landmark building for residents of Sunderland. City Hall plays a huge role in the lives of Sunderland residents and hosts many important functions, including weddings of hundreds of residents each year, civic functions, corporate gatherings and community activities. It was appropriate for City Hall, supporting the festive celebrations, engaging some of the more disadvantaged communities, and did so at a scale appropriate to the building for which the community could be proud. The Christmas trees in City Hall formed an essential part of the celebrations, and they were procured by the building's managing agent to ensure value for money and were funded through the occupier's service charge. There was excellent feedback from a variety of user groups, including children cared for by Together for Children, who attended a specially arranged Christmas party and thought the festive decorations were a real hit. I must admit, I found the decorations on the tree were absolutely beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question is from James Saunders, a resident of this city, the use of Hetton Lyons Country Park. Hetton Lyons Country Park is a great asset for the city. There are some great events held yearly, but what would be great is something like the Colour Obstacle Rush events or Race for Life to be held around the park. Could you take the park into account for 2023 and 2024 for larger events that will bring even more people into the area? Councillor Williams again, thank you.
Thank you. Hetton Lyons Park is listed in the council's available event spaces for event promoters, so I do hope that those event promoters are having a look at that and taking that into consideration, and do hope they come forward with a proposal. Last year, the park hosted 8 events, plus several informal activities via Springboard and the Friends of the Park. It's an extremely popular park for sporting events, including cycling, running and junior triathlon. We will, of course, continue to promote the park for suitable events, subject to appropriate risk assessments. And, of course, if any member would like to put forward an idea for an event in the park, it would be considered. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Our next question is from Lindsay Leonard, a resident of the city. Affordable housing. Please could the leader inform me what arrangements are being made by Sunderland Council to deliver more affordable housing to residents within the city? Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to thank Lindsay for the question as well. The Council recognises the need to support the delivery of more affordable homes and has put in place a housing and delivery investment plan. This plan will deliver up to 574 new affordable homes with a £59 million allocated investment. This programme will support the delivery of council homes that will support some of our most vulnerable residents' access to new and affordable homes. The Council currently has 101 live tenancies and has a strong pipeline of future delivery. Also, Policy H2 of the Council's adopted core strategy and development plan requires 15% of homes on site of 10 dwellings or more, or on sites of 0.5 hectares or more, to be delivered as affordable housing. In addition, the Council are working proactively with registered providers and Homes England to secure grant-funded affordable housing delivering within the city. I'd like to reassure Lindsay that this Council, led by Labour, will be delivering this across the city in years to come. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Our next question is from David Sloan, a resident of the city. Litter in Sunderland. There is a general litter problem in Sunderland. Away from the city centre, there has been a reduction in street sweeping and manual litter picking. Durham County Council is running an initiative for a community voluntary spring clean-up. Can the council consider a similar scheme in Sunderland? Councillor Rowntree.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I'd like to thank David Sloan for the question. Here at Sunderland, as with many towns and cities across the UK, litter can be an issue. However, we have various approaches to try and tackle any problems. Firstly, through our communications team, we try to encourage our residents and visitors not to deposit litter in the first instance. We then have our environmental services teams who clean the areas and empty litter bins across the city on a regular cycle. To support our area teams, we also have a citywide response team that are deployed to litter hotspots. Our city centre, due to the high footfall, does have a dedicated team who ensure litter collection and litter bin emptying is regularly undertaken. The council has also just invested in 10 new mechanical sweepers that are distributed across the city in all neighbourhood areas. Additionally, we have an enforcement team that can take actions if offenders can be identified. Sunderland City Council greatly appreciate and continue to actively support and encourage the work of volunteers across our city in partnership with the Council's own environmental improvement programmes and formalised cleansing routines. The Council have very close links with Keep Britain Tidy and partake in a lot of their initiatives. One of these initiatives is the Great British Spring Clean. This year, the Spring Clean will be running from March 17th to the 2nd of April. However, our support to volunteers and volunteering activities are continuous throughout the year. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Our next question is from Rebecca Moore, speeding on Newcastle Road. The council have installed traffic calming speed activated lights on Newcastle Road, but cars continue to speed up and down the road at frightening speeds for the families who live there. What more can the council do to combat speeding on Newcastle Road? Councillor Johnson, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and also thank you to Rebecca for the question. Newcastle Road is one of the city's key roads in our principal route network, and as such, it is not appropriate to install physical traffic calming measures which may impact on journey times, air quality and increased noise levels for residents. The council has, however, installed a vehicle activated sign which is designed to reduce vehicle speeds, and the majority of motorists do react to the VAS and drive accordingly. However, in recognition of local concerns raised by residents and a prominent road safety campaign led by the Southwick Labour councillors, discussions have taken place with Northumbria Police, and I'm pleased to report that the road has been identified for assessment as a potential fixed speed camera site. Officers are currently evaluating existing speeds and recorded injury accidents which will inform on-site suitability and priorities. In the meantime, bad driver behaviour, such as speeding, should be reported directly to Northumbria Police through 101 helpline or on through your neighbourhood section of their website. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. A question from Dr Hunt, a resident of the city. Can the council leader categorically rule out the prospect of Sunderland becoming a so-called 15-minute city with regards to climate change measures? Deputy Leader, you have that one. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I'd like to thank Dr Hunt for his question. I'd glad to get an opportunity to answer this, actually, because I think there's been a lot of misinformation about this out there. So just to clarify, the concept of the 15-minute neighbourhood within cities and as part of urban development is designed to improve the quality of life for residents by ensuring that daily needs such as local shops, schools, etc. can be met within a 15-minute walk from where people live. Encouraging active travel is key to this and to helping the council deliver against its ambitious low carbon goals. This is all aligned with the city plan and its vision to create a connected international city with opportunities for all, and reflected in work across its 3 themes to create a dynamic, healthy, vibrant and smart city. The council published its updated low carbon action plan in July 2022, which sets out our ambitions to become carbon neutral as an organisation by 2030 and is committed through the low carbon framework to the goal of Sunderland becoming carbon neutral as a city by 2040. The council also renewed its commitment to the UK 100 net zero pledge following cabinet approval in January 2022. It is important to note, however, Madam Mayor, that the UK 100 does not mandate its members to introduce 15-minute neighbourhoods, and there are no plans for the council to formally adopt 15-minute neighbourhood principles. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Finally, our last question is from... No, sorry, I'm wrong. Our next question is from Barry Johnston, a resident of the city. Since the council declared Sunderland a sanctuary city for asylum seekers in 2022, can I inquire as to how many asylum seekers have been moved to Sunderland in the last 9 months since that announcement? Councillor Johnston.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Being a city of sanctuary is about being part of a network across the UK where we aim to build a culture of welcome and hospitality within our communities. This welcome applies to anyone who may need it, and more important to those most vulnerable in the world who have travelled across all sorts of trauma and unimaginable stress. But the wider movement does mainly look at the inclusion of asylum seekers and refugees with that. The council, through its vulnerable groups team, wider local services and VCS partners work incredibly hard to welcome and support all refugees and asylum seekers that arrive and live in our city. And we will continue to welcome people to our amazing city and support people as they become part of our communities. In terms of the data, this is held by the Home Office, and I therefore ask them to be, asylum seekers who have been moved to Sunderland in the last 9 months, that this question should be put to them. And on finishing, Madam Mayor, in recent weeks, with the Conservative government and their rhetoric of divide and conquer, I think here in Sunderland we should be focusing on the shining light and hope that we can in terms of human beings who may be struggling and who have gone through so much traumatic experiences that we can't even imagine. And if the Conservative government focus more on the private jets and the private yachts and the billions of pounds leaving our shores, maybe we would have a country which would have a bit more of hope and understanding and can fund the WASPI Women's Campaign, our public services, our NHS, our police force and our fire brigade and everything else in this country that so desperately needs our support financially. And on that, Madam Mayor, I would propose that we engage openly with hope and understanding for people who are suffering. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. The next question is from David Newey, a resident in the city. Residents of St Peter's have been concerned about antisocial behaviour in several areas of the ward. What preventative measures is the council taking to help stop this? And how is it working with the police and other bodies to ensure it is dealt with, leaving residents to enjoy the ward safely? Leader, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I'd like to thank David Newey for prior notice of the question. The Council has a dedicated antisocial behaviour and neighbourhood warden service whose role is to prevent and tackle all issues of antisocial behaviour. In the North area, we have one antisocial behaviour officer and 2 neighbourhood wardens. The Council is committed to tackling antisocial behaviour and works with a number of partner agencies, including Northumbria Police, Tyne and Wear Fire and Rescue Service, Health, Education, Youth Offending, Probation, social housing landlords, as well as our business community and voluntary organisations working across Sunderland. Working with all agencies, it is our aim to resolve problems using a variety of informal and formal methods, including warning letters and notices, mediation, acceptable behaviour agreements, civil injunctions, criminal behaviour orders and closure orders. Our approach is to engage, educate, prevent and enforce. In all cases of antisocial behaviour, we ensure victims are supported through our dedicated victim support officer and ensure the appropriate action is taken against perpetrators. The Council have recently purchased a number of street watch cameras and drones to help prevent and tackle antisocial behaviour. The team also utilise area-based social media regularly to ensure we keep communities up to date on action we are taking. Residents can report antisocial behaviour anonymously. The team understand that reporting antisocial behaviour can be a daunting step to take. However, we will assure the complainant is supported as much as possible and all reports made will be treated in confidence. I would encourage Mr Newey to contact the Neighbourhood Enforcement Team directly on 0191 520 5550 to allow us to understand the several issues he refers to in the ward more thoroughly. It may be the case we are aware in dealing with the issues Mr Newey refers to, but further information would be welcome. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Leader. And our final question is from Peter Noble, a resident in the city. In 2017, Chip Chase in Oxclose was resurfaced by Colas. However, the surface was beginning to lift by 2021. Councillor Farthing gave advice to residents to ask a public question of council, reporting that bringing it to the council means it will get more attention by the Chief Officer Group. Can you explain why the ward councillor would have not been able to pursue the matter with council officers and why the council have not yet resolved the issue with the contractor? Now, Councillor Johnston is going to reply to this question, but Councillor Farthing, as she has been named, has the right to pass a comment. Would you like to go first? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Now, I was fully acquainted with the issues relating to the resurfacing treatment of Chip Chase in my ward. It received treatment at my behest and was actually in the 2015-16 programme, according to my records. At the time, I was delighted to see it on the list. Following the work, I had a site meeting with officers about the excess tar macadam and chippings at the cul-de-sac end of the street, which had blocked drainage and caused puddling that had not previously been present. I also raised with officers the failure of the surface fronting 83 to 100 Chip Chase. This was similar to the failure of the applied surface on Bowmill Lane, also in my ward, which had also received the same or similar treatment of liquid tar, followed by the liberal sprinkling of trippings. I was concerned to be advised that Colas had refused to reinstate Chip Chase, though they had come back to Bowmill Lane. The initial treatment of the latter had been carried out in the rain, and I witnessed that. However, despite the reinstatement, the surface of Bowmill Lane, like Chip Chase, has also badly deteriorated. Officers are fully aware of this issue, and I've spoken to them about it a few times. In suggesting to members of the public that they ask a question to council, I truly believe that it would strengthen the case that officers were putting to COLUS that it was not only members of the council who were raising concerns about what I can only assume is a lack of quality control and assurance. Peter Noble, I feel, should note that the mechanism for asking public questions to the council is not the unique prerequisite of candidates for local elections. COLUS earns its income from public contracts, so it has, in my view, an obligation to the public to provide satisfaction, which it definitely has not in the two cases cited. I note that the majority of directors of COLUS Limited, Company's House number 026444726, changed in the early part of 2022, and that the business moved its headquarters from the south east to Birmingham. COLUS Limited is a subsidiary of COLUS SA, as I understand it, originally a French company, but now an international, and is a subsidiary of Vogoyas SA. COLUS UK has on its list of values being customer-centric, understanding and meeting their needs. Let's hope that this re-emphasis of the lack of customer service and quality control means that we get these defects on Bone Mill Lane and Chipchase made good by COLUS at no expense to the council taxpayers of Sunderland. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Johnston, would you like?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. There isn't really much else to add other than the fact that this has been looked into and the contractor, as Councillor Farden has already said, has been less than cooperative in attending to those remedial actions, and this has been escalated to a senior level to help resolve the matter on behalf of members and residents. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. We are rapidly running out of time. We move on next to questions from members of the council, but it is my intention to end the meeting on time tonight. Thank you. The first question, household support, is from Councillor Heron.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Could the leader please inform us how many of the residents we have supported by the household support grant over the last 6 months?
Thank you. Councillor Williams.
Thank you, and thank you to Councillor Heron for prior notice of the question. The Council has used its Household Support Fund Round 3 funding and additional funding to make awards to 32,593 households between the 1st of October 2022 and mid-March 23. Awards are still being made and final figures across all of the HSF support pathways will be available until late in April. It's really good that we've been able to support so many households. We're absolutely sad that we're in the position to need to do so. Thank you.
Thank you. 5G cable installation, Councillor L. Reid. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Does the leader agree that certain contractors have been leaving public footpaths and roads in a worse state when they found them after installing new 5G cables?
Thank you. Councillor Stewart.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And can I thank Councillor Reid for prior notice of the question. There is a central government initiative, Building Digital UK, to drive wider availability of fast and reliable broadband across the UK. This has meant either existing utility infrastructure needs to be upgraded, or in many cases, new infrastructure needs to be installed. Consequently, numerous communication companies are allowed to install their equipment in the public highway. Unfortunately, as long as the reinstatements meet national standards, there is very little the Council can do to reduce the scarring of our footpaths and road services. This is, of course, part of a wider problem nationally of utility companies who can dig up our roads and inevitably leave a poor job, but an entirely legal job, Madam Mayor, after they have left. Council officers actively monitor works, assessing them against the standards, and any remediable works that are identified are undertaken by the utilities cost. What I would advise the councillor to do is read the government specification for the reinstatement of highways, 4th edition, this here, initially introduced in 2010, and since then there's been 3 what I would call whitewashes of the regulations within that allow legally for us to have a mess in every street where utilities are allowed to dig up our roads and our footpaths. Indeed, Madam Mayor, I think, and I'm glad for the question, because it's a good example of where, Madam Mayor, we need more regulation, we need more red tape to allow the council to actually take action where we can. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Edgeworth, your question on the A183 and the B1405 junction.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. What discussions has the Deputy Leader held with Transport North East about making sure recently announced Department for Transport funding for the Regional Bus Service Improvement Plan is used to upgrade the A183 B1405 junction, that's the one at the Broadway and Springwell Road, from its small unsuitable roundabout to a new junction with smart traffic lights to make sure this key route is safer and suffers from fewer tailbacks. Thanks.
Councillor Johnston, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Edgeworth, for the question. We are aware of the problems associated with this junction and the level of concern within the local community. This junction has been the subject of unsuccessful bids for funding in the past, such as the Department for Transport's Local Pinch Point Fund, and has remained a priority for improvement. In the interim, problems have been reduced with the introduction of a signal control crossing facility at Corteen Avenue and a road marking scheme along the Broadway to increase the number of traffic lanes and capacity on approach to the junction. Council officers have been working with Transport North East to develop a solution, and they have confirmed this junction will be considered in the first tranche of bus service improvements planned for the region as part of the bus service improvement plan. The Council's Infrastructure and Transportation Service within the City Development Directorate has been tasked with developing the plans which will involve replacing the existing roundabout with traffic signal control to improve safety and benefit not only buses but all traffic including pedestrians, and it is planned to start work on site by March 2025. And as the plans are developed over the coming months, extensive consultations will be carried out to seek the views of local members, local community and our key partner organisations such as Transport North East, Nexus, the bus operators and the emergency services. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Supplementary, Madam Mayor.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thanks for the response, and I really welcome the proposals. I'm sure colleagues in Barnes, Sandhill, St Anne's and Pallion from all parties will really welcome this because it's an issue that lots of people raise. Just because it doesn't border Sandhill exactly, but lots of our residents use it, can we make sure Sandhill councillors are included in any consultation as well as Barnes, Pallion and St Anne's, please? Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, just to
Councillor
confirm,
Johnson.
happy to do that through the consultation process. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. Councillor Butler, homelessness in the city.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Could the Leader inform us of what the Council is doing in response to homelessness in the city?
Thank you. Councillor Johnson, to you again.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Butler, for this important question tonight. Preventing and tackling homelessness is a priority of the Council, and we recognise that many people, for many reasons, are homeless or at risk of homelessness. We're working hard with our partners to ensure that we have the range of services, accommodation and support available to meet the needs of all our residents who present to us and our service. At Cabinet on the 16th of March, I was delighted to approve the new Homeless Reduction and Sleeping Rough strategy, and this strategy sets out our citywide approach to preventing homelessness, to help those at risk to access support and to enable them to move on to permanent home to reduce instances of repeat homelessness. As part of our strategy development, we have completed a homeless health needs assessment, and this was undertaken with our partners and with those of lived experience. There were 21 recommendations from this assessment, and we'll be working through these with our partners to ensure we are tackling health inequalities and issues faced by those who are homeless. To drive the strategy forward, we have set up 2 key working groups, one with members, who I'm delighted to say has been accessed by all partners, and all members from across different parties. And I'd like to thank all those people who have volunteered to be part of that group. Although if current trends continue after tonight, there might not be many Conservatives left on that working group. But the aim of these working groups is to review the current pathways with homelessness and to identify areas of improvement for the future. As part of our aim to increase accommodation and support provision, the Council are also identifying new projects that will directly support the delivery of homeless accommodation with support services. And at Cabinet on the 16th of March, approval for the first project, which will deliver 7 self-contained apartments that will offer 24/7 support for future guests. And further projects are under consideration at the moment, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Councillors, it is now 7 o'clock, so I'm going to draw the meeting to a close. As you are aware, this is my last full council meeting, and I've got to say you've provided me with a very stimulating night tonight. Thank you. It's been a privilege. Yes.